All right, Max, you ready to roll?
Let's do it.
Dude, thanks for coming, man. Your podcast is gripping, to say the least.
Thank you.
I'm like on beginning of episode 5, like I said. But to kick this thing off, just tell people who you are and what this whole thing is about.
Okay, so those two things aren't necessarily connected, or wouldn't seem to be. But I'm an actor. I'm 33 years old, or I was acting more at the time that this all started. I generally work in film. I've worked in documentary. I'm from Connecticut. For all intents and purposes, a normal guy. I got my degree in drama for at NYU, and started acting. And there's some offshoots of my character and things that I've done in places that I've been that I think inform this situation, but pretty much a normal guy. And then, and then this hack began when I was working as an actor in New York, before I moved to LA to work in documentary and start to make this podcast. But is that?
So long story short, correct me if I'm wrong, you were contacted on Instagram by a group of people that claim to be part of the People's Liberation Army of China.
Yes.
And
Dissidents.
They claim to be dissidents.
Right.
Right. And to make a long story short, it seems like these were actually active members of the PLA, or an intelligence arm of the PLA, China's spy service, if you will, that were trying to recruit you to find out information on the COVID vaccine and how it relates to, it's all relates to 5G. And there was a story that came out in like 2020, if I'm not mistaken, or 2019, about the Harvard professor who took money from Chinese spies, right?
Yeah,
and there was 2 students that got actually arrested for this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so generally that's the story. There's a lot of nuance. Yeah, they claim to be dissidents that broke away when they learned that the technology they were working on was evil, and they wanted to fight in this war for human consciousness. And as we get into that part, that seems a little bit more hard to believe.
Yeah.
There's the hack, which was like extreme. Like they were saying, we see you sitting on your green couch on the 7th floor of your building. You said this in therapy today. Tell us more about that. You had a conversation in a car with your dad 5 years ago about this verbatim. So the hack was very real, and what put me in a position to engage in this harder to believe part of the story.
So everything I just said, for people who are listening, is sort of like what we're going to go through this podcast. Like I imagine we're just going to go through this like in a linear fashion.
Yeah.
We could start from the beginning. Let's talk about like how they originally contacted you. What your mindset was going through all this stuff, and then we can show some stuff that you brought to go through it all. I know you've done a very good job of like corroborating everything on the podcast, which people can listen to. We'll link it below.
Thank you.
But go ahead.
Yeah, so pretty much day one, unemployed actor sitting on my green couch, as I said, looking at Instagram probably, and I got a notification, which was a novel event at this point in my life. And so I went right to it, and it was a comment on a picture that I'd posted a few days prior. And it read, we can show it later, it read like a beautiful proverb or a poem or a haiku or something. It said, "A pale frail bird is looking up at you from the perch. What is known cannot be unknown. Here the rivers meet. Very mysterious, vaguely threatening sounding, very like Follow the White Rabbit type of stuff." And but it also had my cross streets in there, Havemeyer and South Fifth Streets, which is where I used to live. And I'm not a tech person at all, so I didn't know if that's easy to do or hard to do, or if this is just a friend messing with me. And so pretty quickly, against the advice of my girlfriend at the time, who was like, just ignore it, I was like, I have to know why someone is sending me this. It's not like a Nigerian prince scam or like something more common like that. It's this beautiful poetry with my address in it. So yeah, I engaged. Because I ended up reporting them to Instagram later. That doesn't do anything. It doesn't like open a case. They just block them. I went to the police at one point too, and they laughed me out of the precinct because this is not the kind of thing they deal with. But so I engaged with them. Yeah. And I started messaging. I tried to play it close to the chest just to get to the bottom of it. But they were very vague. It was very, I said, what do you want from me? They said to comprehend. Comprehend what? The world around you is changing. And they're talking about like, essentially like, we are reaching out to you, what felt like from the other side of the matrix, from outside the matrix, saying to you like, there's a world that you've been suspect of your whole life, and we're here to tell you that it's real, and we're extending a hand, and also it's going to take some time for you to adjust. So we're just saying hi. And they didn't threaten me, they didn't ask for anything, and actually never did threaten me or ask for anything from me besides obviously the work they wanted me to do for them. But no direct threats. And they also, one of the first things they ever said, I think I said like, what are you trying to do? What are we doing here? Or what do you want from me maybe? And they said, absolution from the growing pandemic. And that was on March 6th of 2019. And it comes out they're using a translator and they're hackers. So maybe the word pandemic is like a virus and it's like a turn of phrase or something that went through their translator and came out weird. So I don't put too much merit in that, but definitely strange looking back, especially because once COVID hit and I was talking to them, they started calling a lot of shots for how things were going to unfold with COVID that were correct.
You mean they were like saying things, they're predicting things that actually happened?
Yeah. So if just to jump forward for a second, when I was in LA, they came back. I moved to LA, it was like maybe a year later, and they had been gone for a while. They came back and they just started being like, in March of 2020, by the way, I was still at the office. They were like, okay, here's how this is going to go. These are the states that are going to struggle more. Like, this is what's going to happen with the economy. Like, this is what, there's going to be political infighting about a vaccine. They started like listing all these things that I certainly wasn't talking about vaccines in March of 2020. It was just like, what's going on here was more of the vibe, I think, in March. So yeah, looking back, the original pandemic comment in March of 2019 was strange.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you were also telling people around you, I think you had a girlfriend and you were seeing a therapist.
Yeah.
You were telling them all about this.
Yeah. Thank God actually both of them, because it came out that the hackers were flying drones twice that I know of out, because I lived on the 7th floor with like big windows, and actually 2 weeks before I ever heard from them, before the first message, I was sitting another probably unemployed day on my couch, and and I noticed a drone flying outside the window, and I called my girlfriend in, and she's on the show to corroborate this. And I was like, oh, that's weird. Look at that. And I pointed at it, and it just went like flew immediately the second I pointed. Like it seemed like it was sitting there watching, saw me see it, and flew away. But the messages hadn't come in yet. So I was like, oh, weird, but probably not some, maybe it's a real estate thing or, whatever. And then later, once the hackers, once I engaged with the hackers, they made themselves known. I was sitting writing a screenplay about this with my buddy, because that's how I was processing it at the time. And the drone came back and he saw it. And then also, as you said, yeah, my therapist, I have him on the first episode because he was there from the beginning, and I just wanted someone to validate, that this isn't made up.
And when they first engaged with you, they started talking about 5G.
Yeah.
And Huawei.
Yeah, that was, I think one of the first messages was the Huawei incident wasn't isolated, and we have our acknowledgements, is what they said. I've read these messages so many times.
And when they're talking about the Huawei incident, they're talking about like, there was something that came out where like the FBI, are you talking about when the FBI like acknowledged that there was like, we were buying Huawei equipment and installing it on like phone towers and cell towers that were near like nuclear bases that were in somewhere in like the Midwest, the US?
Oh, I don't know about that, because that,
okay.
I mean, that could have happened. I think what they were referring to was the CFO got arrested. Her name is Meng Wanzhou, and I think she's the daughter of the CEO.
Oh, right.
She was arrested, and then she was being held in Canada, and we were trying to extradite her, and the charge was brought. It was like conspiracy to defraud multiple international institutions, which I don't really know what that means, and I think that's the point. It's vague. And I think she inevitably just got sent back in an exchange, maybe for a couple of our people that they had.
Yeah, Steve, can you find that story where the CEOs of Huawei's daughter was arrested, and she was arrested in Canada, and the U.S. was trying to extradite her?
Yeah, because so that's why it was interesting what you were just saying, because I think the gist, at least from the hacker's perspective, and I think also just from like a business perspective, is that 5G is I mean, you know, we were just looking at the panels right outside. They're everywhere, all over the world.
Yeah.
And conspiracy aside, it's like the new technology. It's like the iPhone was just invented, and who's ever enabling that technology is going to have a lot of power and make a lot of money.
Yeah, and this is from, when was this? This is from April 14th, 2019. Huawei's founder says his daughter hasn't faced hardship and her arrest will make her stronger.
Yeah, so this I think was
Scroll down.
a little bit after she got arrested, because they sent the message
okay.
in March.
Founder and CEO of the Chinese tech giant Huawei said he believes the arrest of his daughter, Huawei CEO Meng Wanzhou, will make her stronger since she has faced very little hardship in her life. Give her some character.
Yeah, well, he's honest in that regard, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, what G would say, my hacker, that's what I come to call them, is well, I guess also from a grounded perspective too, is that if Huawei is enabling the 5G towers in America or in other countries, that means that essentially the Chinese government is going to have access to the information that flows through that, which is everything.
Yep.
And that does not, that rubs our government the wrong way. So
there was a story that came out, I think it was last year, like late last year, where I guess the FBI was investigating how I think it was Verizon. I believe it was Verizon. I could be wrong. It was either Verizon or AT&T was contracting out all of their work they were basically like picking the lowest bids to build all these cell towers, I guess, that were all over the country. And a lot of them were in like Montana area, where all of our ICBM like launch sites are, our nuclear launch sites, where we have all those like Minutemen missiles, you know?
Yeah.
Which are like in range of that nuclear facility. So if there's Huawei, and these were like all Huawei equipment there. So like the FBI had to investigate it and figure out how to like get rid of it and redo it, because it was like a huge like vulnerability to us.
Yeah, that's surprising, because I think that there's some resistance or maybe even some litigation to like limit Huawei's presence in America in general. I could be wrong about that. But like I was just abroad and I see Huawei popping up all over, like, you know, Wi-Fi networks and everything like that. So I think maybe we're keeping them at bay, only for the reason that to an extent we're different from China in that, like, if Huawei is a corporation, but you know, it's probably also the government. Whereas,
of course, right? Because that's like everything in China, right?
Right. I mean, allegedly, but
allegedly, yeah. I've never been, but that's what everybody says.
And to say that our corporations aren't working with our government is probably a bit naive, but there might be a few more steps between the two.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. But would China ever let the US install their equipment in their country? No. Hell no. Never.
Yeah.
But we just do it because it's can you find that story, Steve, so we can actually see what it actually said? Basically about the FBI investigating Huawei equipment in cell towers.
It also makes me wonder about the South China Sea and Taiwan and all the microchips too. It's never occurred to me, but I wonder if those microchips are the ones that are being used for. I don't know. I'm not an expert.
Yes,
but
this is it. Oh, CNN exclusive. FBI investigation determines Chinese-made Huawei equipment could disrupt U.S. nuclear arsenal communications. Chinese government was offering to spend $100 million to build an ornate Chinese garden at the National Arboretum in Washington, D.C., complete with temples, pavilions, and 70-foot white pagoda. The project thrilled locals officials and hoped it would attract thousands of tourists every year. Yeah. Anyways, there's more about like if you scroll down, it'll show you. Since 2017, federal officials have investigated Chinese land purchases near critical infrastructure, shut down a high-profile regional consulate believed by the U.S. government to be a hotbed of Chinese spies, and stonewalled that they saw clear efforts to plant listening devices near sensitive military and government facilities. Amongst the most alarming things the FBI uncovered pertains to Chinese-made Huawei equipment atop cell towers near U.S. military bases in the rural Midwest, according to multiple sources familiar with the matter. The FBI determined equipment was capable of capturing and disrupting highly restrictive Defense Department communications, including those used by U.S. Strategic Command, which oversees the country's nuclear weapons. That's crazy.
Yeah. I appreciate this deep dive too, because it's also it gives some context to it that's a little bit more grounded. So it's not like you have to go full conspiracy. It's also, I remember I heard something about Chinese. It wasn't maybe specifically this, but it was like Chinese corporations or government, whatever, buying up like massive plots of land around the country too, and that it's like privately owned and traded, so that's legal and everything. But
the holidays are creeping up faster than you can say pumpkin spice. This year, make the in-laws bask in the grooming perfection you get from the latest masterpiece by Manscaped. The Chairman Pro Electric Foil Shaver. It's like Rudolph for your face, guiding you to a smooth, irritation-free shave. Head on over to manscaped.com and join over 11 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped by using the code DannyJones for 20% off plus free shipping. I've purchased almost every brand of electric beard trimmer on the market, and none of them come close to the smoothness and versatility of Manscaped's Chairman Pro. And when I finally got my Chairman Pro electric razor, I realized how painless close shaving can be. But there's way more. This thing is solid, waterproof, and has a light on it, so you can even shave in the dark or in the shower. It comes with 2 specialized heads, the 4-blade foil for that superhero smoothness, and the stubble trimmer, which I use for when you want that neat holiday scruff. These quality heads minimize razor burn and irritation because nobody wants to show up to the holiday party looking like they lost a fight with a Christmas tree. The Chairman Pro has Flex Adjust technology. I could even shave Santa's neck folds, and that pivoting head would adjust to every curve and crevice. And like a stocking stuffer, it includes an LED spotlight because Manscaped rules. And as I already told you, you can use it in the shower. No more sink hair massacres. Just a quick rinse and you're all set. The Chairman Pro is so jolly, it's powerful enough to tackle even 5-day growth, making it perfect for any shaving lifestyle. Get the Chairman Pro today to get a shave as smooth as you deserve. Our listeners get 20% off plus free shipping when they use the code DannyJones at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping with the code DannyJones at manscaped.com. It's linked below. Now back to the show.
I imagine that gives them more opportunity to set up towers.
Yeah, they have been buying tons of land around here.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
Yeah. So I don't know if, like, to what extent they're still installing 5G towers enabled by Huawei around here, but I thought there was some kind of resistance to that, but maybe not.
Yeah, I think after this, there was resistance.
When was that again?
This was. Can you find out when was that article published? Sorry, I missed that part.
That was in July of. Fuck. Let me reopen it. I
thought it was 2020, maybe, or 2022.
2022.
Oh, 2022.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Let's go to the top.
This is the final war.
Go down.
God, what is up with this silly ad?
There we go. Right there.
July
2022. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess it's ongoing.
Yeah, but like the shoe. Imagine the shoe being on the other foot. Never in a million years would China let us do that.
No way. And yeah, so I wonder if it's like corporate greed driving the or like outweighing the risk, I guess, for our government. But I don't know. That seems sketchy. According to Xi, that's a bad move for us.
I guess that's a win for communism.
Using capitalism to beat capitalism, beating us at our own game. Wow.
Yep. Finding our vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
Okay, so they messaged you about talking about the daughter of the Huawei executive CEO.
Yes, she was a CFO. Yeah,
a CFO. What did they say about that, and why was that relevant to the story?
So, this is the beginning of like their brilliant way of weaving modern, like verifiable current events with what could or could not be true in terms of who they are. So pretty much what they said is we have our acknowledgments. They were saying they were somewhat responsible for this. They were somehow involved that, and they were vague about that, but pretty much I started looking at Huawei and started looking at 5G, which by the way, they got in touch with me. One of the first things they said when they mentioned 5G is they said, we're not sure if these are your own beliefs or if you're working for someone. And so it took some digging with them and a little more conversation to understand. But pretty much it must have been in 2019, I was walking around New York with a friend, and like we just did, I saw one of those panels and I was like, oh, I wonder what that is. And then I asked someone installing my Spectrum or something, and I learned that that's the hardware that enables the software of 5G. And so I think I certainly never posted anything on Instagram. I really don't think I texted anything about it. I think I really just had like 2 conversations with a friend walking down the street saying like, oh, look, a 5G tower. Mm-hmm. And then when the hacker reached out to me, they were like, essentially, we heard you having these conversations and we're not sure if these are your own beliefs or if you're working for someone else. Mm-hmm. So I was like, did they think that I have some, I'm higher profile or some intelligence or something that, but I literally just had 2 conversations about it. And there were other things about my profile, I guess, that kind of led to them reaching out to me, but they thought I knew something more about this than I did. Mm-hmm. But yeah, then they linked it to the Huawei incident, which was her arrest. And 5G is like a big thing throughout the story. But in the beginning, they were just like, research, learn more. We're not, in the beginning, they wanted me to meet with an agent is what they said. But I was telling people, which I guess is not the move in espionage. I was like, cause I was telling my therapist, I was losing my mind. Yeah. So yeah, they're like, meet with an agent, give us a code word, and someone will come and get you eventually. There will be a test. All this other strange stuff started happening. Allegedly, a student reached out to me and was like, why did you email my family, like threatening my family? And I was like, what are you talking about?
A Harvard student?
Yeah, the Harvard student, which I think inevitably was the hacker testing me.
Yeah.
Because they were like, there will be a test tomorrow. And then nothing happened that next day or days after that. But
these seemed like strange psychological tests. Like,
well, yeah, because to what end is kind of the point.
Right.
They're not getting anything from me. They're just playing these different angles of, and essentially what they said is they pretended to be this student reaching out to me with what they had gathered were my greatest fears, which is that they were actually PLA and not dissidents, and that they wanted to steal money from me or that they wanted to, drive me insane. So then a student reaches out to me saying, these things are all going to happen to you. Which
basically saying that the original people that contacted you were bad guys. They were going to destroy your life. Mm-hmm. All the worst stuff you can imagine. Yeah,
which also, as my buddy on the show points out, if they're trying to like use reverse psychology, that's not, that pushes me away. That scares me more. Like that makes me less willing to talk to them and work with them. So yes, very psychological manipulation tactics, I think. Testing my ability to handle counterintelligence, and I don't know, especially at this point in New York, I'm just like,
none of this makes any sense.
None of this makes any sense. And then I go, I'm acting. I go to work on set that day on Mr. Robot. Did we mention that yet?
No, I don't think we did.
Oh, we didn't.
We started.
Okay, yeah. So fun little rabbit hole to dive down. I was an actor, and at that point I had booked my first job ever on TV. On Mr. Robot, and the hack started between the day that I booked the job and worked it. So I hadn't even worked the job, let alone like been on TV. But in between those 2 days, this hack started. And so initially one of my leading theories was like, is this the show messing with me? Is this hazing? Is this some kind of like method acting shit that, I don't know, or somebody working on the show maybe? Right. But that was unclear. But that was a leading theory at the time, was the Mr. Robot thing, because the stories are very similar. It's like Chinese-based hackers and losing your mind and all that stuff. But so I was grasping at straws trying to figure out what this was, because they had a very hands-off approach in the beginning. It was just like, welcome to this world. Like,
so what happens after the student reaches out to you and they're telling you all this stuff? Was there like, I understand like you were trying to figure out what they wanted you to do. You felt like you were at a point in your life where you were like, you had just moved, you were trying to find some sort of purpose, and you thought that this could be like some life-defining event for you. So you were like pushing them to try to figure out what they wanted you to do, or like at least figure out who the fuck they were. Because you were also like documenting everything that was happening.
Yeah, which I think they knew, and then it turns out they told me they knew and they didn't care about, and they liked that I was writing about it, which is strange. It also begs questions why. What is it about what they're telling me that they want me to tell other people? You know, but to the purpose part, I mean, I think that there's kind of in my show, The Final War, there's like this character arc that I think is beyond the investigation and beyond the facts of what happened, which is like I was unemployed. I went to school for something I was never going to make any money for, be able to support myself with. And I had just gotten sober like 10 months before then. And I was like, you know, figuring out what I wanted to do with my life. And I think I have an avid imagination and you know, certainly would like a purpose and like a lot of us maybe wouldn't care to admit would like that purpose to be something important. And so when they reached out to me and they were like, well, the first thing to your point was, I need to guarantee my safety. Even though there was this like voice in my head that was like, this is crazy. I was like, okay, this is something manageable. So step one was like, figure out what they want and if I'm safe. And then when they were like, you're safe, like we have access, but what did they say? Our desire is not to make a disturbance. If we wanted harm to be done, it would have been so, is what they said, which is still a vague threat.
True.
But yeah,
if they are who they say they are,
right, exactly. But like I didn't know if they had agents on the ground. I mean, I was vulnerable to something like this. It was crafted very well to kind of fit my who I am. So once it became clear that I was safe, at least that's what they were telling me, and then they went on to tell me, you know, we're dissidents of the Chinese military. We're fighting this good fight for the soul of humanity, whatever the fuck that means. Can I curse? Is it a thing?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I was like, okay, so I'm safe. They've told me who they are. They've told me that they want me to meet with an agent. Like, I know generally, not specifically, I know what's going on here. And then that's when they start to kind of butter me up and tell me about this very exciting war that I could be a part of, or something that started to speak to the part of me that was looking for a purpose. And
he is the one.
I mean, yeah, like it's a bit like embarrassing to admit, but like, I mean, you know, I grew up watching movies and wanting to make movies, and I also wasn't using that part of my mind really because I wasn't working that much. So that kind of began this blurring of fantasy and reality where I was like, yeah, you know, and that's my weakness. I mean, I think we all probably have one.
Absolutely.
And they crafted this quite brilliantly to speak to that. I mean, I think they knew I was going to message them back before they ever sent the first message, you know?
Yeah. And something else that we didn't mention yet, you're like a modern day Lee Harvey Oswald with your background. You've been to Russia.
That's a horrifying way to put it, but
you've been to Russia, Cuba. Like you have a very similar background. I mean, he was working for the CIA, but you, if something ever happened to you and something came public about it, they have like the perfect backstory to describe you.
Fuck. Yeah, you know, nobody has ever put it like that. Someone actually, my buddy on the show put it in this way where, because I thought, like, let's say, for example, the student was just like a total hoax or a test or whatever. Yeah. He also pointed out that maybe, because they also went on to create a fake Instagram account of my name and have conversations with people.
Right.
So he pointed out that maybe all of these things were kind of, to that end, were to create this digital footprint that alludes to the fact that I am actually like the perpetrator here and that I'm the bad guy. So if they ever needed to like pull the kill switch and hightail it out of there, they could be like, this is all you.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
That is a very reasonable explanation of why they would have chosen you. And by the way, why did you go to Russia and Cuba?
to become a Russian sleeper agent.
You want to be a communist.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's funny, the arc of this story from like being like, I'm a young kind of free thinker and like, I understand, you know, I've read like a page of like Karl Marx or something like, you know, I think I know what the world is about.
Mm-hmm.
And I studied theater in Russia. There was a semester abroad program that I went to in Russia, which...
what year was that?
That was 2012, I think.
Oh, really?
The winter of 2012, yeah.
How was it?
It was awesome. I mean,
Really?
it was kind of like, not to say like I peaked in college, but that like all we did was act and
You like
talk.
that, Steve?
Well, yeah, I try to, it's a little vulnerable, but no, it's like the paradigm for me of like what a perfect life is. All we did, we were just creative all day, every day.
Yeah.
We did, dancing classes, singing classes, acting classes, like history. We did stage combat and acrobatics and just went to the bar and that was like our whole life, and it was awesome.
How long were you there?
It's a semester, so like 3 months plus,
cool.
a little bit. Yeah. And there was no indoctrination there. Unfortunately, I mean, that would have been cool. I would have fallen for it, obviously, because I fell for this, whatever this. Yeah. Even though this is very convincing. So yeah, that was that. And then when I was at school, we did a class on Cuba, and like it's a class that every semester it's like a new country, and then you study the country, and then you go to the country for like a week or something, 10 days. And so we got these like special visas to go to Cuba.
Wow.
And
what year?
That was 2014 or 15.
Okay.
2015, I think. Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, tough background. And that was definitely, honestly, as the story goes along, one of my bigger fears. I was like, is this like a MK Ultra thing? Is this like us? Is this the US? Am I being brainwashed and like pushed to become radicalized and like do something crazy?
For years, I've wanted to invest and grow my money. But the problem is it's hard to know where to start or what's the best way. And that's why this episode of the podcast is sponsored by Acorns. Acorns makes it easy to start automatically saving and investing for your future. You don't need a lot of money or expertise to invest with Acorns. In fact, you can get started with just your spare change. Acorns recommends an expert-built portfolio that fits you and your money goals, then automatically invests your money for you. Acorns is hands down one of my favorite ways to grow my savings. And it's built on the principle of micro investments. My investments are exposed to a broad range of stocks and bonds, something I could never figure out by myself. I feel less at risk, and it's baked into the Acorns account from the start. Head on over to acorns.com/Danny or download the Acorns app to start saving and investing for your future today. Again, that's acorns.com/Danny or download the Acorns app to start saving and investing for your future today. Paid non-client endorsement. Compensation provides incentive to positively promote Acorns. Investing involves risk. Acorns Advisors, LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor. View important disclosures at acorns.com/Danny. It's linked below. Now back to the show. Right. Right.
So, and at a certain point too, I was way in over my head, and it didn't seem like there was any recourse for me getting out of this. So I was just like constantly like paranoid that like something was going to just like push me over the edge,
Yeah, like were they trying to turn you into some sort of Manchurian candidate? And then like even if you look at like what happened, I forget that guy's name who tried to shoot Trump, but like I wonder what. And all his shit was erased. We don't know jack shit about that guy. The little guy had no internet presence at all. So like, is it a stretch to say something similar happened to that guy? I mean, apparently like he had a pretty antisocial personality, like didn't have a lot of friends. People made fun of him, like had these weird ties, these different like political groups that he apparently donated to, like super strange. And then when he dies, everything's fucking scrubbed.
Well, thankfully, there is now a very public record of my situation.
Yes, that's
because
good.
I think
Smart.
that keeps me safe to
I think
a
so
degree.
too. Yeah, dox yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Although people are slow to, I think, believe me. That's why I'm glad we brought proof today, because it could be. I mean, there is still that breadcrumb of that trail of a student and the fake Instagram account and that kind of stuff. So hopefully, I've got more chips than that story does.
Yeah. So, okay, where were we before we went down that Russia-Cuba rabbit hole?
The Harvey Lee Oswald rabbit hole.
Yeah. Lee Harvey Oswald 2.0.
Yeah. Oh God, that would be unfortunate. Anyway, so where did we?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure that out. They were explaining to you.
There was the Mr. Robot thing.
The Mr. Robot thing. They were explaining to you. We already covered the daughter of the Huawei CFO, and then they were explaining to you 5G and like the Internet of Everything.
Yeah,
So like
IoT, Internet of Things.
one of the things they did to you, which I don't know what kind of effect this has on the human mind, but like they basically told you they can access every single piece of technology around you in your house, in your apartment building. They can see you, hear you, smell you anywhere you fucking go.
Yeah.
How did they explain that to you?
Well, Internet of Things, IoT, which was something, I mean, it sounds like a silly name. It doesn't sound, but then it's like an abbreviation, IoT, Internet of Things. And it's this idea that I don't think is like 100%, well, not that it's not possible, but let's say, for example, you have like a landline. The landline isn't directly connected to the Internet of Things. It has to be like Bluetooth enabled or on Wi-Fi or something like that. But the idea is that they always would compare it to the way things are in China now, specifically Wuhan, which we'll get to that, and how all of that enables like a social credit system, and that it just makes oversight like super simple, and AI is kind of processing all the information. So let's say you like litter on the street in some Chinese town, like you're getting like completely automated, but you're getting like a mark against your, and I'm not an expert in this, but I believe generally that's how it works, that if you do something that the government doesn't like, you lose some right.
Right. Full on, fully surveilled police state they live in. Like cameras everywhere. They have like AI monitoring systems that track your actual gait, like the cadence that you walk in that can identify you.
Horrifying. So yeah, even if you're wearing a mask, they can still tell.
And then that ties in with their centralized currency. So like if you do get in trouble or your social credit score goes down enough, they could basically turn off your money.
Yeah.
So you can't do anything. Can't move, go anywhere. Can't buy gas. Can't eat.
Yeah.
Like that's very terrifying.
Bleak. Yeah. Orwellian. And that's what they were saying was coming here essentially through IoT, through 5G. That's like the system that will enable the ability, because I guess 5G is the bandwidth. And again, I'm not an expert, but it functions at such a high rate that it's able to enable AI processing everything that's coming from cameras, microphones, social media presence, everything to kind of like create a profile on you, and that you need 5G, I guess. And this is something we can look up or someone will comment.
So 5G is essentially, with the bandwidth of it, it's fast enough to process multiple signals at once and somehow analyze it, integrate it with AI in real time.
Yeah, and again, we need a fact check, but
Steve,
I think before all these towers and stuff started popping up, like when you walk around New York City now, at any given moment, you can look around and you will see at least 3 or 4 of these panels.
What is this? So this is Google AI. For what it's worth, Google AI says that 5G technology is totally safe.
Yeah, we're friends.
Major advancement in wireless communication that improves the Internet of Things by enabling faster data transfer and more reliable communication. 5G's low latency and high-speed connectivity are making
IoT. That's the
IoT applications more effective and adaptable. Okay,
so that's integrated supply chains,
remote vehicle maintenance, navigate. That's the crazy thing, dude. Like I didn't even realize when you were explaining on your podcast, like the Internet of Things, that includes any car that's like built after 1999, essentially, right?
Yeah.
That has like a radio or any kind of like wireless connectivity to it, which goes back pretty far. It's not just like Tesla cars. They're pretty much every car. And then your Samsung TV, if you have any kind of smart TV, they can access that because they have voice activated features on them. Baby monitors. And there's videos. I've seen the videos of like baby monitors in like kids' bedrooms where a hacker will like go into the baby monitor and start talking to them.
So fucked up.
It's everywhere, dude.
Yeah. So, and that's just the beginning too. I mean, we're really at the beginning stages. Like I think honestly, like sometimes it'll say 5G on my phone and I won't be able to send a text message. So I think it might be maybe advertising. Essentially, it's this idea like, look, we have 5G on our phone, but I don't know to what extent it's actually like fully enabled yet, because this implies that it actually works. And sometimes it says 5G on my phone, but there's nothing. But
so did you have any sort of confidence that they explained to you the Internet of Things and they have access to everything? Do you think they actually had access to your phone microphone, your phone camera,
100%.
your camera roll, all this stuff?
Yeah, because they cited very specific. For example, there's a video in my phone where I thought I was like making a documentary at the time, and I was wearing a hat that I got in Cuba with like the red star on it, and I was like ranting about like the state of the world and my dissatisfaction, however G put it. And I've never shared that with anyone. It was kind of embarrassing. So I wasn't like texting it to my friends. Like it was like a ridiculous ramble of just like me in my backyard recording myself. And they cite that video specifically and things that I said. And like I said, like I would put my phone every day. I'd go to therapy. I'd put my phone on the couch. And then later that day, they would message me saying, you talked about XYZ in therapy. Tell us more about that. Like verbatim stuff, like things that I know 100% never left the walls of my therapist's office for good reason.
And this is all on Instagram Messenger?
Yeah, that's the in the beginning I was like I said something about that. I was like, I'm sure you know that like there are certain agencies or whatever I said that can like and they laughed it off. They said essentially like half of Instagram accounts are fake, and it's a very easy place to come and go because like I said, at one point I reported them to Instagram, and they don't like open an investigation. If everybody who sent Instagram a message saying like I'm being hacked, like whatever, they just block it and they like close that person's account.
Yeah.
There's not like an investigation going into it. So it's actually they did say we could talk on Discord at one point, but I'm not a gamer or like a tech person, so I didn't have Discord.
I hate Discord.
Why? I don't know anything about it.
It's just complicated.
Oh, okay.
It's just too much work.
Yeah, so I stood no chance on Discord. So Instagram, but I guess, I guess they're right. They came and went very easily. Every time we would have a conversation, they would come from a new account with a Chinese name, 0 followers, 0 following, 0 posts, pop up, send me some messages, and then it would disappear. Mm-hmm. But strangely, actually, after some time, weeks or months even, the account would pop back up, but sometimes it would pop back up with a different name. So for example, like one of them is Xi, I think that's where I originally got their name. Like, I'll butcher the last name, but some Chinese last name.
Yeah.
And then that account went away, and then like months later, it showed back up, but the name was now one of the guys on my show, Glenn, who was involved in this from the very beginning. He worked at a restaurant in New York. I forget what it's called. It was called like Steakhouse, and the new name on the account that I had originally had the conversation with was now Glenn from Steakhouse. So again, in the column of like they're shifting these pieces around to make it look like, oh, I was just having a conversation with my friend Glenn. This wasn't a hacker, you know? But I don't know why it pops back up after some months too. I'm glad because it gave me the ability to record the stuff that I had missed and take the screenshots that I'd missed before. But
yeah, so it's weird that they knew about the screenshots and they had access to your phone. They didn't go in and like, I'm assuming they would have had access or the ability to delete the screenshots on your phone if they wanted to.
Yeah, there was early on I was talking to Glenn and he was like, if they're in your, he brought that up. He's like, if they're in your phone, like, wouldn't they not be okay with it? But they said to me, and again, this raises some questions. They're like, we know that you're talking to your friend about this. We know you're writing a screenplay. We know you have the screenshots, but we support, like, you're like a creative person and we support this, which is strange. But also kind of begs the question, which might, you know, there's more stuff comes out later about why this might be, but that, you know, why do they want me to tell people what they're saying? Like, what is it that they're saying that is, you know?
Yeah.
And I think it helps maybe from this point. I wasn't necessarily doing this at the time, but from this point in the story, even to consider what they're saying to me that's true and what might not be true, because then let's say I then believe everything, then I'm going to say everything that they told me in this story, in the screenplay, as though it's truth. And that might lead people to believe that because they trust their character, like G's character, that they would know what they're talking about, that whatever they're saying is true. Is this, I don't know, this is a little convoluted.
I think so.
It essentially would lead me to spread misinformation.
Yes.
Which is like, you know, a very real campaign that internationally is going back and forth trying to, what were we talking about? Hypernormalization?
Yeah. Hypernormalization, yeah.
Nobody knows what's real anymore. And it's because people are saying everything everywhere all the time that you just don't know, you know, what to believe. So
yeah.
Could this be a tool of that? Is my point.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I talk about that all the time with the people that I have on the show. It's like I wonder sometimes, like, if the government came out tomorrow and said that the UFOs landed and the aliens made a deal with us, like, like, and considering even all the people who believe aliens are real, like there's a giant community of people in online and all across the world that are like super into like the whole UFO alien thing. How many people would believe it if the government said it was true? Right? Like with looking at how many people trust the government nowadays, it's the very same people who are like aligned with the whole UFO alien narrative who believe that the government is full of shit. So if the government said it, it would probably have the opposite effect.
Yeah.
It's like, that's what I'm saying. Like the truth, like nothing is real anymore. The truth is so fucking slippery nowadays.
Yeah. And I think it would lead actually to like people fighting, which is maybe the point, is like a divide and conquer. Is like the point isn't even whether it's real or not, it's the fact that something comes out and now everybody's fighting. And people point that out on the internet all the time. When something big happens, like when the hurricanes are happening here, everyone's like, what do they not want us to be talking about right now?
Yeah, the CIA controlled the weather.
Yeah, and I'm not even going to touch that with a 10-foot pole, but...
There's a video of Michio Kaku talking about it. I don't know if you've seen it.
No.
But there's a video of Michio Kaku talking about this like 7 years ago on like CNN or something. They're interviewing him. He's like, we have the ability to control the weather in Vietnam, the Vietnam War. He was talking about how the CIA was controlling the weather on the Ho Chi Minh Trail to flood out the resistance fighters, like, or the Northern Vietnamese Army, whatever they were called.
Yeah. It's possible. Anything's possible. And I think I've seen actually there are like civilian applications of this. I think you can, like, if you're exorbitantly wealthy, like hire someone to ensure that the weather is like good on your wedding day. I'm not sure if that's true or not, or if it's just something I saw on the internet, but
yeah,
I don't think it's unreasonable. I don't know. I'm not qualified to speak.
There was, dude, did you see that crazy story about those billionaires that were on a boat celebrating like the sale of some company and they got hit by a tornado?
Yeah, that was sketchy.
That was sketchy. And there was some sort of big lawsuit that just happened with those guys. And then like one of their business partners like mysteriously got hit by a car on a jog the day before.
In London, I think.
In London, yeah.
It's like same day or day before. Yeah, like I don't know.
That is wild.
I think that's a perfect example of like.
But like, look, if you say something like that, you're like, oh, okay, David Icke, lizard people, like those are the same kind of people I would batch into the whole 5G conversation.
Right.
Until you start to tell me this kind of story.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, what is there anything to this? Like,
well, that's what I love about G, because there does develop this strange relationship of like captor, captee, whatever. But is that they never say, obviously, like the mainstream, like commercial narrative, but they also don't talk about like the things that you would think a conspiracy or like an alt-right or whatever type of person would talk about. They've got this like third story, like the mainstream 5G is like it's just internet, and then the mainstream conspiracy is like, I don't know what it causes COVID, or it's like cooking your brain, and and there might be some truth to
mind control or something.
Probably not. I don't know. I won't. But their thing is that, I mean, we'll get to it later with Dr. Charles Lieber and that kind of stuff. Yes. But that it's like a third thing that you've never even heard of. And is that them telling me something untrue, so I spread misinformation, or is the point of all these topics is that people are just like with aliens? It doesn't matter what's true. People are fighting, and then we're more easily controlled when we're fighting.
Have you ever thought about the scenario whether like maybe this is their plan, like laying out exactly how they planned it to be, like some sort of strategic deception, and now you're going on podcasts talking about this, and this is exactly what they wanted?
Are you G? Is it you?
Steve, stop the cameras.
I also love how anytime I'm talking about it with someone, always there's like this like, wait, what if? Or I was on a show the other day and it was live and it just cut out. Right when they're like, hey, so who do you think they really are? It started getting staticky. Someone made a off-color joke about a certain community of people who they claim run the world. And yeah, and then it cut out. So people love to be like, oh my God, like this is, or someone's phone won't work when I'm telling them the story and they're like, oh my God, they're here. Mm-hmm. I mean,
that happened to me once. That happened to us once too. Remember when we had Ashton Forbes on the show talking about you ever seen the video of the plane that disappeared in Malaysia?
Yeah. Oh, with the orbs?
With the orbs. Yeah. Zapped. I had him on here, and in the middle of the podcast, we lost power.
The whole place?
The whole fucking place. Never happened before in a podcast ever. We had to get back up on the generator, and it was anyways. But yeah,
I don't know. I mean, something that this whole thing did too is it like opened up this part of my brain in the same way that like hallucinogens do or something, where I'm always like, maybe, because there was a point in my life where I would not have considered this possible. And then this happened. And so now I'm like, maybe this is like, this whole thing that seems like a complete story to me is like chapter 1. You know, like maybe the hacker comes back and like, oh, you thought we were gone? Or, you know, the feds reach back out and they want something from me, or somebody else reaches out and says that this has happened to them and we were able to gather some more information. So maybe.
So, basically they prove to you that they have access to all of your shit.
Yeah, that's a long-winded way of saying
How does
yeah.
that affect your mindset, and like how does that affect? I mean, obviously, there's like a couple of options here, right? Either they're really sophisticated hackers playing some long game to extort money from you somehow. Very
long game. Yeah.
Very, very complicated,
years,
patient, long game that they're playing, or what? They are who they say they are.
I think there's a couple other options. I think, and there's a lot of options under this, but like AI could be like that G is not a person. And there's a lot, I think I was saying to you before, I plugged everything I have, all the screenshots and the FOIPA reports that I have into ChatGPT. And I was like, who is G? Like, what is happening here? And, they gave me a very insightful, I mean, I have shied away from things like that for, you know, good reason. But now I've kind of started using it, and
why have you shied away from it?
I mean, I just like, when this all happened, I deleted all my social media. And to your point of how is it changing my life, knowing that they're in my phone, I was, you know, I walked by an ATM on the street and I know there's a camera in the ATM, and I would just be like, oh, okay. Or I'm like having a conversation with someone and it's like private or intimate conversation, and I look and their phone is sitting on the table and I'm just like, and so it was like, I mean, and nowadays or even then, it's like there's always something somewhere. Right. So I was like constantly on guard, and when I would go back to my house, I would like unplug everything and like put my phone under the rug, you know, like
wow.
And before I learned about Faraday bags, but this also
You're keeping your phone in the microwave, you said?
Yeah, in the oven.
Okay.
Yeah, but I don't know if that does anything. It could amplify the signal for all I know. But that was when they started talking about thought hacking and dream hacking, and things got kind of insane.
They were talking about that?
Yeah, that was like the end was when it. So maybe we'll build to that.
Yeah.
Because again, I don't know if that's true or not, but in the state I was in, hearing that was troubling. But anyway, so they, that knowing that they know everything about me made me start to change the way I live my life. I went into my therapist's office, who's on the show and validates my relative sanity. I went to the bathroom and I wrote on a piece of toilet paper, follow me to the bathroom and leave your cell phone. And like, I walked into his office and I just showed him the piece of paper, and then he left his phone and we went in and I told him about this, and we had maybe 10, 15 minutes of a conversation, and then we went back into his office and had a session like nothing had happened. And so that began, but dude, I'd be lying to you if I said it wasn't like kind of exciting me a little bit to be like, I'm like playing this game.
Right.
You know?
You're in the middle of some real shit.
Yeah, but constantly fluctuating between like James Bond and Neo, and like I'm a drop in the ocean of what is going on here, or it's not even real, and I'm like totally just taking myself for a ride. It was insane. Yeah. And psychologically, I think that was the main focus, was what it was doing to me mentally.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they were like, meet with an agent, and I was like, okay, fine. They said, give us a keyword and we'll meet. That was kind of the next step. We'll meet in public. So I'm going to come up to you. They'll say the keyword. And I did. I told them the word, and they're like,
you made it up?
Yeah, I just made it up. Just a random word. It was Evergreen, because that was like a street that was in the town that I grew up in. And it wasn't anything that was any of my passwords too. Because I was at that point, I was like, they're asking me to generate a word that they could maybe, like, so I was like, oh, if they're trying to hack passwords and stuff, like, I'm not going to let this be a word that is in my passwords.
Right.
So it's just a word that I've never used for anything. And then they're like, but there'll be a test. That's when the student happens, like a couple weeks later. And by the way, the whole time, my family, my girlfriend, everyone that I'm like that's helping me get sober, with the exception actually of my therapist, strangely enough, is like, Max, stop. What is going on here? Like, why? Or this interesting thing that happens to some people, especially then when I couldn't explain it well. I just see this like light go out in their eyes, and they're just like, no. And I'm like, what do you mean no? And they're just like, this doesn't exist. Like kind of sentiment about the whole thing, where they just can't imagine something like this is possible. So that didn't help me because it made me feel isolated. But so because of all that influence, there was a certain point where enough time went by without someone like coming to get me in the street that I was like, you know what, guys, like this is all a bunch of bullshit. Fuck off. And they're like, okay, and they disappeared. And this was in like early summer, I think, of 2019. And a couple months go by, I get, or actually no, right around the same time is when I got this opportunity to go work for Bryan Fogel, big documentary filmmaker, awesome guy who
made
works.
the
Dissident, Icarus, has been hacked by governments before.
So good,
his text messages and photos in his phone were on Russian news. And there was a bunch of stuff I don't know if I can talk about, but Saudis involved in the Dissident sketchy stuff going on at the time. Yeah, like I had to fly the movie to Berlin.
Wait, did you work on the Dissident?
Yeah.
Oh,
I
really?
was post-production staff on the Dissident.
Oh, wow.
I literally had to fly the movie to Berlin for 48 hours to show them the movie for the film festival there and bring it back because
by yourself?
Yeah, because there was no, and I was like, should I be worried about this? He's like, you're fine. Because also he compares himself sometimes to like Alex Honnold in that he has that thing in his, or he doesn't have that thing in his brain that
the
like,
rock climber.
Yeah, like if you saw Free Solo, he's like, they did a scan on his brain where he like doesn't feel fear, or it's just like I don't know how they measured it, but it was like this idea that this part of his brain doesn't get activated even like nearly as much as a normal human's. Yeah. And Brian's like, I have that too, and he does because just knowing the things that he's done. And so I was like, is this safe? And he was like, yeah. And it was inevitably, it was all good. But great. So great guy to go work for, and very fortuitous considering the situation too.
I don't remember because it's been a while since I watched it, but did he ever get in touch with Bin Salman for that documentary, or did he ever try to reach out to him?
I don't even think there was an effort to reach out because that guy is not the type to like make public statements. I think there was some or public statements about, hey, did you kill this guy in the embassy? I don't know. I don't think there was any reach out to him. I know there was some stuff with like intelligence agencies trying to get like the actual reports about what actually happened. But I don't think there were, I came in for like post-production. So I don't know what was going on before I got there for that. I could be wrong about that.
That's one of the fucking most bone-chilling documentaries I've ever seen.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you've seen it too, because there was a whole, God, I don't want to speak for him, but we had trouble distributing it because it was very political, or not even political. It's just a story about something that happened that happens to maybe piss some people off who have a lot of money and influence in the world.
Yes.
Which it's unfortunate that that's like the
Saudi
landscape.
Arabia is fucking everywhere, dude.
Yeah.
Everywhere,
streamers,
in every aspect of our life, like sports, streaming. If you depending on how deep you dive into Jeffrey Epstein, he's everywhere. Like
no shit.
Yeah.
So not good people to piss off, or great people to piss off. But see, you've still seen it, and hey, people go watch The Dissident because it's an incredible movie, and it speaks truth to power to such a degree that people don't want you to see it. But yeah, so I think what happened actually in the character arc of Purpose with the story is that I got this opportunity to go be an intern for him. I was living in New York, he was in LA. My girlfriend was in my everyone was like telling me I shouldn't do this. So then I got this internship, and I was like, you know what, like that's a purpose. Like I can. And then I think that was part of what made me be like, you know what, I don't need to be talking to this person. Like and it was so hands off at that point too that I was like, you know what, like let's just shelve that one and go work for Bryan.
Yeah. That's an interesting point too, because when this whole, like the way the seed was planted, like it was planted during a time when you were out of work, right?
Yeah.
So you would have had the time. If you would have been in the midst of some big production when this happened, you probably, the seed probably never would have been like actually planted maybe.
I wonder, yeah. I mean, I think if I had a satisfying relationship, a satisfying job, like whatever, stable, then maybe they would have never reached out to me because that would have wouldn't have made me a candidate. But but also someone asked me the other day if I would do things the same way if this happened again, and I was like, yeah. Because I mean, here I am, not in jail, not insane to a clinical degree. So you know, I think there's just something about it that's so juicy, even though it's horrifying. I just couldn't help but learn more. So I don't know.
So, okay, you're working for Fogel.
Well, yeah. So, but in the interim too, while I wasn't talking to the hacker, they created an Instagram account in my name, and they followed a bunch of women that I had dated.
Let's talk about my favorite daily energy supplement, and that's Verso. I've been using this stuff every day for like 5 years now, ever since the legendary neuroscientist and nutritional scientist Dominic D'Agostino told me about this stuff. Every day, subtle changes occur in our bodies, often going unnoticed. It's called inflammaging, a chronic low-grade inflammation that deteriorates our health as we get older. It's more than just a sign of aging. It's a key contributor to health issues like cardiovascular disease, dementia, depression, and physical decline. It continuously weakens the body's resilience, turning minor infections severe and impacting mental health and cognitive function. Inflammaging significantly diminishes both quality of life and independence. Proper diet, exercise, and sleep can only get you so far. And this is why I take Clean Being by Verso religiously. It contains ingredients targeted to fight off and help prevent inflammaging. Research shows that these ingredients clean out damaged cells in the body that affect healthy cells, reducing inflammation, protecting against oxidative stress, and it improves conditions like cardiovascular disease and neurological disorders. After taking Clean Being for some time, I have way less joint pain, I get much better sleep, my skin is clearer, and I can think better during the day, especially during podcasts. These are all benefits of reduced inflammation. Plus, Verso ensures transparency and quality by publishing third-party testing results for each batch produced, so you know you're getting exactly what you're paying for. Click the link below in the description or head on over to ver.so/Danny and use the coupon code Danny at checkout for 15% off your first order. Again, that's ver.so/Danny and use the code DANNY for 15% off your first order. It's linked below. Now back to the show.
And then they waited for them to reach out. They didn't even directly reach out. They just followed and waited. And 2 people that I know of spoke to them, one of which I don't have the screenshots for because she deleted it. The other one I do have the screenshots for. And it's kind of funny when you read it because they're like, hey, like, I have undertaken studies of 5G. Like, would you like to know about that? And the girl's like, sure. Like, how you doing? You still sober? Like, you know, they're speaking in a very strange way. But the function of what they were doing, I think, was
as if it was like people translating into English something that you would say, and it wasn't really like natural for you, like a different cadence.
And I can't hate on the girls for responding to them in the way they did because I also did. I was fooled by them too. So so it's to that point of like, what is it for you? Like they were able to find something that you know fooled those girls, and then find something that fools me, and you know everyone's got a weakness. So. But it seemed like the bulk of what they wanted from those conversations was to gather information about me. So he asked the girl in the messages that I've seen, tell me a memory you have of me. This is the fake me, the hacker speaking to the girl. And she gives a long, eloquent description of who she thinks I am and the experiences that we've had. Juicy information for a hacker who's trying to... Yeah. And they linked romantic relationships to like, as like a big marker for like who... you are and like what and what the information they could gather from that, how that would help them like influence me. I guess it teaches you a lot about trust, commitment, you know. Yeah. So they were doing that in the background, and when one of the girls told me that it was happening, I was messaging with her, and then I was like, okay, just delete it. I'm sorry, block them, whatever. And then I messaged the account Lebow Max. And I said, delete your account now. This is Max Lebow. And they said, no, this is Max Lebow. And at the time, it fucking, yeah, like it blew my, I was like, I thought I was like on the brink.
Short-circuiting.
Yeah, I was like seeing someone under the circumstances be like, no, bro, like, where are you? It just like, it threw me for a loop. And I think maybe the more grounded explanation for that has to do with like the trail of breadcrumbs being like, that account is me. So, you know what I mean? Like in the same way that they're making the student look like I reached out to them, it's kind of in that same category of like, they're stealing my identity to a degree. Like they're creating a narrative around me that could, so if I go Lee Harvey Oswald one day, they can be like, well, yeah, obviously look at this guy. I really hope that doesn't happen. That'd be terrible.
Yeah, well, no, I don't think. Yeah, hopefully it won't. Now that you're on podcasts, I mean, we got plenty.
That helps. So they're doing that in the background. I posted a picture from the rooftop of my building, and they just said from the rooftop, and it felt like a weak attempt at like reaching back out. So I was like, fuck off. And some months go by. I get to LA. I'm working for Bryan. A very fortuitous connection in this world, like very parallel paths in terms of espionage and documentary filmmaking and these crazy stories and hacking. The Dissident deals heavily with Pegasus, which is
yes.
And so that's come up a lot throughout this process. Do
you think Pegasus? That's what they were using?
I mean, it's like we were in the movie in The Dissident, they were using it on Jeff Bezos.
Right.
So it's like, if you look objectively at the facts, like maybe, but the idea that, and this is before I worked for Bryan, this is before any of the COVID testing company stuff. I was just me. I was just like a guy who, maybe my family is connected to people, or maybe the town I grew up in is suspect or something, or maybe my trips to Russia and Cuba is suspect. But it's hard to believe that someone would use Pegasus on me.
Yeah. I've heard that a license for Pegasus is like $250,000 or something like that.
Yeah, or they claimed multiple times to be the best hackers in the world. So,
maybe they have their own Pegasus.
Yeah.
Pegasus is that an Israeli thing?
The US, no, not USO group, ISO something, SO group. It's an Israeli company that sells it. Right. It's supposed to be for like law enforcement purposes.
Yeah, it's a 0-day hack where they don't need you to do anything. They can literally, like, they don't have to.
Yeah, you don't have to click.
You don't have to click any links or anything like that. Yeah. Israeli cyber arms company NSO Group, designed to covertly or remotely install on mobile phones running IOO. Okay, wow. Yeah. So possible, but hard to believe. But the evidence does suggest that. And something I don't think I've highlighted enough too is the fact that, okay, so they can listen to an active conversation. They can look at my photos. They can look at my messages. They were talking about conversations that I had 5 years ago in a car with my dad in Connecticut. So that's like Edward Snowden stuff. That implies that like anything that you say on or around your phone is like logged somewhere and can be accessed at if the right person with the right skills has the desire to. Because unless the hacker's my dad, unless the hacker's my therapist, like someone is able to find this information, which is horrifying. And I don't know if that Pegasus is part of that or if it's something else, but so I start working for Bryan, and it's great. It's so fun. Like I said, I flew to Germany, film festivals, like doing all this fun stuff, Sundance. It was amazing, and I felt like I had a strong purpose, and I'm working my way up. And this is in the middle of this.
No, this is like the hackers are gone. I told them to leave me alone.
This was after it started. You told them to leave you alone.
Right. But they hadn't come back yet.
Right.
So COVID hits. We're at the office. We're in post-production of The Dissident. We're seeing the stuff on the news. We're like, there's this thing happening. Oh, it's in China. Oh, it's in France. Oh, it's in, Brazil or whatever. Like, but still at work, still not freaking out, still not talking about vaccines or anything.
Right.
And the hackers reached back out on a very specific day. It was again March of 2020, but the day is significant because of what happens 2 days later. But they reach out back to me, and it's the same stuff, these riddles and welcome back, and you're in. And
so real quick,
yep,
they brought up the pandemic how much earlier than the pandemic actually hit?
A year, pretty much. I mean, it was March
year
of
before.
2019. So I think the pandemic technically started in like
September.
September even.
I think it was September, October. Yeah, is when of 2019
in China.
in China. Yeah.
So even still, I mean, it was March.
So it was March. Oh, okay.
So April,
So
May,
like
June, July,
6 months
yeah.
or something like that before that happened. That's
Yeah.
wild.
Yeah.
Okay, continue.
And then they come back when it's like arrived and they're like, here it is, Max. This is the final war. Like, we told you it was coming. Here it is.
And you brought proof of this?
I have all the messages saved. Yeah, I can show you. The beginning ones are easier to show because I took screenshots. The last ones are screen recording, so I'd have to like skip through them. But,
Okay.
But actually, do you want me to show you?
Yeah, let's.
Okay, so
let's
I'll
show.
show
That'd
you.
this would be a great point to show. some
Okay,
of this
yeah,
stuff.
because I have to find. Okay, I think it's. I also have some funny pictures in here from the time. So this is just all screenshots of all our conversations. And one day, for example, they sent me one in Chinese, and I had to translate it.
Oh, he sent you one in Chinese.
Yeah, and I'm like sending emojis and stuff too. I was like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing with these people. I'm like so in over my head. And then this is from when I posted it on Twitter to literally zero response. This was me on Mr. Robot. Okay, enough of the hot dog. Enough of this was when they told me to read Nostradamus, and I totally did.
They told you to read it?
Yeah, they were like, because they were talking about the Antichrist. They're like, Trump is the Antichrist, which is also...
They said that?
Yeah, which is also strange because you think this is like alt-right QAnon type stuff, especially when they start talking about COVID and vaccines, but they're like, Trump is the Antichrist. And like, we got to work up to that because it's...
Whoa.
Okay, so let me just see, which one is it? Okay, it was this one. So I just want to make sure that I can, because it's gonna, okay, we can skip through it. So they sent me a message. This is from Jay Queshang. I don't know how to say that, but
Yeah.
they commented on the same picture, and it was that translated one where it said like something about a bird again. They love birds. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I was like, but also like, because COVID had just hit and things were starting to get suspect, there was that part of me that was like, oh, maybe the world isn't what it seems, was like reactivated. And somehow maybe they suspected that or knew that might be the case. And so they reached back out.
And you said, so you're the bird?
Yeah, I was like, because in the previous message it said something about a bird. And I was, and they were fishing and I bit again, you know. They didn't message me first. They posted on that same picture from before a new message. And I reached back out because I was like, fucking love this shit to a degree, you know?
Yeah.
Especially once COVID hits. So I'm like,
So we're not your friend of yet, but we are surely not to be your enemy. There is a space for us to work. What do you want now? We enjoy to witness this about you. Of late, you have not been commencing to connect the many dots. Your fear is once more upon you. You want to know more. Ask us another question. Oh my God, dude.
yeah, like this is also like every time we talk, it's like riddles and it can get kind of frustrating. And that's why I'm just like, what do you want? Get to the point.
Yeah.
What truth? And then, oh shoot. Okay. Am I going to be able to scroll through this? Okay, perfect. You want to know what is happening. You know that we are real. You are in quarantine. Okay, so this is the beginning of the final war. This is
Okay, and that was, what date was that?
When did this start? This was
Okay, March 31st.
March 31st, yeah. So a little bit deeper into March, but I distinctly remember getting these messages and being at the office. So I was still at work. Also, we were not the type to be scared from like staying at the office at the time.
Right.
So maybe we were there a little bit later than other people. So they're operating, they began a process, they kind of explain why they left. And in episode 3, there's the whole thing where they kind of are like, yep, you got us. Like, we're not real, like, whatever. That part, that's all.
They're basically questioning your distrust of them. They're saying, allow us to erode your old distrust. Let us find a center point from which to move forward. We began the process 1 year ago. We integrated a technique and faltered disposition in which we posed a secondary source of intel. We kept the links.
That's the student.
Okay.
Yeah. So because pretty much what happened was they reached out twice as a student. The second time they reached out as a student back in New York, I had the wherewithal to be like, I know this is you. Like, stop with this student shit. And they were like, okay, you got us. It is us.
Yeah.
But we're not actually like we're a part of we're not dissidents of the Chinese military. We're a part of like some other group that's experimenting on like the marriage of 5G and human consciousness in the age of the Internet of Things, and making it sound like they were like a research group or like there was something. So it seemed like, especially because they reached back out and everything we know now, it seemed like they were trying to like weaken the blow a little bit and be like, yeah, you're right. Like, no worries. Like, don't think about this too much. Like, we're out. And then they come back and they explain that they did that on purpose. They did it to test.
It was part of a psychological profile they were doing on you, a comprehensive profile. Wow, which took place over a year.
Yeah. And so okay, I'm like, again, what do you want? Take the lead.
And like, again, who the fuck would waste all this time?
Yeah.
To do this,
and
to
on
fuck
me
with you.
too. It's not like I'm Jeff Bezos. Like,
right.
I mean, at this point, I'm starting to be around powerful people, which is, it's easier to hack me than it is Bryan. Bryan, I mean, there is technology that counteracts Pegasus. I think it's called Orion, and there's probably new stuff now. This was at least true when we were doing the Dissident. Mm-hmm. There's like, you can get an app on your phone. It's like $1 million or something. That
really,
yeah, that is like the counterbalance to.
So it's an app on your phone that you can purchase that sort of like
fact check
blocks any sort of incoming spying from either the government or any other foreign governments or any hackers or anything.
Yeah, I think it's designed to detect.
Bryan
Pegasus.
uses this?
I don't know.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
So can you look this up real quick, Steve? This Orion thing. I want to learn about this.
What? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Orion software counter hacking. Is that what you would say? Counter hacking safety
defense, or maybe if you even just Google Orion and Pegasus.
Yeah.
Like, they might link it together.
You're gonna have to take the power back, Steve. There you go.
Okay.
And then I'll queue up the next bombshell.
No, this is not it. Not Pegasus Medical. Orion. There you go. That might be it. Orion. Nope. Not surgical trays.
Let me go back to the Pegasus.
I don't know if I've just like revealed some state secret or something, but it's not hard to believe that there's like a defense against the offense of Pegasus.
Type in spy Orion.
Are you sure it's Orion?
I'm pretty sure. But also, I think they've even moved past the original Pegasus. I think there's something better now.
Yeah, I'm sure they have like a Pegasus 6.0 by now.
Make it include Orion. It's excluding.
Do you use quotes for that?
Oh, it's just there's a button. Show results with Orion. I don't know.
Oh, really?
Where's that?
Just at the bottom of like the first article, right at the bottom.
I see, yes.
Oh yeah, I guess quotes.
Wow. Google does not want you to know about it,
No,
bro.
no, it's talking about the solar winds thing.
Oh yeah, SolarWinds has reported.
Let me try this.
All right, you can keep looking. We'll keep talking.
Yeah. Okay. So I queued this bombshell up.
Okay.
So this is I just scrolled down a tiny bit. So this is day one of them reaching back out to me again.
Okay, after the pandemic.
Started. In March. Yeah, March 31st.
Oh, this is still March.
This is the same day. I literally just
got
scrolled down like 2 messages. I skipped some more riddles and vagary. So we operate beneath what is considered the mainstream levels. See the document in which operatives were taken out of currency. So they're implying that something in this article is talking about their operatives, or just operatives, I guess you could say, taken out of currency, like arrested, I guess. Especially because, so I've learned because of Pegasus, especially, don't click on links. But I just Googled the words.
Never click on links.
Never. Or you're fucked because you don't even need to.
Right.
So I Googled this, Harvard University professor and 2 Chinese nationals charged in 3. And that was enough for the Department of Justice article that they sent me here to come up. And I don't know if you want to show that, but pretty much what it talks about.
Are you showing this right now, Steve?
I am.
Okay, cool.
Or I mean, even to show that article.
Can you pull up that article, that justice.gov article? Harvard University professor and 2 Chinese nationals charged. I'm sure you'll find it.
Yeah, it's the first thing that comes up. It's the Department of Justice article, and it talks about this guy, Dr. Charles Lieber.
Okay.
Who, considering the gravity of who he is, what he's done, and what he did in this case, like, I'm so surprised that nobody knows about him. I think there was like maybe a New York Times article, but it kind of skated under the radar. Pretty much I think it was in December of 2019, this guy who is maybe the world's foremost nanobiologist, right, is arrested in at Boston Logan Airport, fleeing the country by the Department of Justice for lying to the Department of Justice about taking money from the Chinese government.
Whoa.
And specifically the 1,000 Talents program, which is essentially a program they have that is made to attract all of the best talent in all realms from around the world, and use it to advance their, goals. And
Lieber, the W, what does the WUT stand for? The Wuhan University of Technology.
Wuhan, by the way, is where he works in China. This guy.
But he was going from Boston to Wuhan?
I don't know if he was going to Wuhan, but he was fleeing because he knew that he was about to get arrested.
And he worked at that lab in Wuhan?
Yeah, so he worked at MIT and Harvard, and he had Department of Defense contracts, and was secretly working with the Chinese.
Jesus.
And the fucked up. So also in this article, it talks about two of his students who were also arrested, I think in San Francisco, fleeing,
right.
Who turned out to be Chinese agents. So this guy is developing injectable, and you can find this on the MIT website. It's like one of the first things that come up when you search this guy on their archives. Injectable nanotechnology that embeds itself in your nervous system and can monitor and manipulate it. And so the front-facing application is, if you have Alzheimer's, maybe there's a way to like Iron Man, like that, like, I don't know what movie that was, where it's like nanotechnology and it can maybe make your life better, make you, remember things and make people who can't walk again.
Like Neuralink, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
The lowest hanging fruit for Neuralink is to paralyze people, get them to walk again. Right.
Right. Like how altruistic, how wonderful. But why is the Department of Defense interested in this? Why
it's like the iceberg, the little bit that's above the water, and then the giant fucking underbelly of it.
So this guy's arrested, and his students were arrested fleeing with the technology, something that they had worked on together. And I won't. Can
you pull up this guy's profile real quick, Steve?
Yeah, go to like the MIT website.
Yeah, go to Charles. What's his last name?
Lieber. Lieber. Or LEI? I don't know.
Yeah. Google just Charles Lieber and see what his bio says. No, this story is everywhere, which is interesting. All right, just click on Wikipedia.
But like, you never heard, like, I haven't talked to anyone who's known about him before.
American chemist, inventor, and nanotechnologist and writer. In 2011, he was named the leading chemist in the world for the decade of 2000 and 2010 by Thomson Reuters. Based on the impact of his scientific publications, he is known for his contributions to the synthesis, assembly, and characterization of nanoscale materials and nano devices, the application of nanoelectronic devices in biology, and a mentor to numerous leaders in nanoscience. Professor at Harvard University has published over 400 papers in peer-reviewed journals and has edited and contributed to many books in nanoscience. Holy fuck.
Yeah.
What does this say? In 2012, Lieber was awarded the Wolf Prize in Chemistry in a special ceremony held in Israel, in the Israeli Knesset.
Oh, God. The chat's going to go crazy.
Oh, yeah. The chat's going wild right now.
Well, Lieber is a Jewish last name, but also Lebow is.
Is Lebow Jewish?
Yeah, and they'll probably hate me
Jewish?
for that, too. Well, I grew up Jewish. My dad's Jewish. My mom converted. So, yeah, I'm one of them, I guess.
You control the world.
If you want to go there. Yeah, convicted of 6 felonies, lying to the Department of Justice.
Wow. Dude, that is crazy.
Yeah. And this
so
all
where
happened.
Is he now?
I think he's in jail. I don't know. I mean, I didn't really follow up on that, but and this all happened in December. So like
of 2020 or 2019.
Of 2019.
2019.
I think. I mean, actually, I don't know what the in December 2021.
December 2021.
Well, no, that's when he was convicted.
Okay, that's when he was convicted of the felonies.
Yeah.
Okay, but when did that DOJ article get published?
That was
2020 January.
January of
okay,
2020.
so right after the pandemic.
Yeah.
He was arrested in 2020.
Okay. Yep, and then convicted 2 years later.
Yeah. So
That makes sense.
yeah, so the world is wondering what's going on. It's December, it's January, and suddenly this guy is fleeing the country. He's working for China and all this stuff.
He's
So
getting paid. How much money did he get paid by China?
I thought it was like hundreds of thousands, but then my buddy on the show was like, no, he saw something that was like millions.
It paid Lieber. The Wuhan University of Technology paid him $50,000 per month, plus living expenses of up to $1 million. So approximately, this says approximately 160,000,
Million Chinese yen.
and awarded him more than
Yeah.
1.5 million to establish a research lab in Wuhan. Okay,
In Wuhan, come on. Wow. In Wuhan.
bro, this is crazy. So what was this nanotechnology? What did this have to do with Wuhan?
So that's where there's like a ton of dots.
Me and Max are not suicidal.
Yeah, it's funny how many podcasts I've been on so far where people have had to say that, but yeah, definitely not. So how is this relevant to 5G?
Yes. How is this relevant? How is this relevant to Wuhan and the gain of function research that was going on, and the coronavirus?
Well, the gain of I mean, if you're kind of believing everything that G is saying, the gain of function might have even been smoke and mirrors. Might have even been look over here, while we're doing this, while Lieber's cooking up this injectable nanotechnology that literally like builds itself. It's like, I mean, people might want to compare it to like graphene or something, but I don't know if that's exactly what it is.
Graphene?
The whole like graphene oxide thing, like the thing. People are saying like, oh, that's what's in the vaccine, and it can
I haven't even heard of
it has
that.
like a life of its own or something. I don't know, but I don't know if that's true, and I don't know if this is true. But well, actually, I do know that in the stuff that he developed, it's essentially it like what's the word, like self. There's a word, but it builds itself. It like assimilates molecules from around it and builds itself. So you like put a small bit in, and it like expands. Fact check. I don't know.
Right.
So I say, how is this relevant to 5G? Because I was like, these guys are the 5G guys. Like, let's get into it.
Yeah. That's where this whole conversation started with 5G.
Yeah, from the very beginning. And so the first thing they say, and there's more to it, but they're talking about China suppressed the virus because of 5G networks and their surveillance capabilities, contact tracing, testing, surveillance, all this stuff. And they want me to work with them.
Yeah. China. Okay. So they're saying they used 5G basically in cahoots with their Internet of Everything, monitoring everything, tracking everything, social credit scores by keeping people locked away and all that.
And so it gets convoluted here. So I think, we can keep looking if you want. But there's, pretty much they go on to ask me to go get a COVID test.
Okay.
And to ask certain questions about 5G. Which is like, I'm like, you're telling me to call like a nurse at like my local doctor and be like, and ask some question about 5G and get a COVID test? Like that seemed so strange to me. I was like, nobody knows anything about 5G. There's nothing a nurse especially or a doctor is not gonna. It just seemed very strange to me. But they were saying work with us, and so on. And they will go on to say too that. Another kind of application and connection of COVID and 5G being, okay, so to keep it grounded, if we know someone can hack everything in your phone,
yes,
and it's not even like a conspiracy leap to be like someone can hack a Neuralink potentially. I mean, I don't know what the security is on that. I don't know how that works.
Right.
But I think any reasonable person could at least say like, yes, that's possible. But G, in terms of this Dr. Charles Lieber stuff and the vaccine and COVID and everything, is essentially saying that because this is nanotechnology, like this is it's not organic, it's like a machine, that there then could be some connection to the ability to if there is,
Put it in the vaccine?
well, yeah, if there's nanotechnology inside of you that's embedded yourself in your nervous system and can monitor and manipulate it, could that information also be accessed? So that's kind of the leap that they're asking me to make, which I'm not saying is true or isn't true.
So they're saying that could 5G interact with these nanobots,
Right?
or nanotechnology,
and not even just 5G, just that 5G, because let's say, for example, like we were saying before, like in China, how they do the social credit system. Like there's so much information coming through all the cameras and microphones and social media and everything.
Right.
They need AI and they need 5G to enable the ability to
process it all in real time.
Yeah. And so I imagine that there are just as many or more inputs when it comes to like your nervous system and your bodily functions. And so they're not saying like 5G is like creating a super monster with this. They're essentially saying like, if you have, whether it be Neuralink or it be something like this, if you have electronic functions in your body, that 5G is powerful enough with AI to be able to understand and process all of the things that are going on inside of you, potentially. This is what they're saying to me. Mm-hmm. It's convoluted.
To what end did they say?
Well, this is the final war.
Okay.
You know, this is the final war. This is
the final war.
They say this is the final war for the mind of humanity. They're like, no more wars with guns and bombs, you know? Like
they said from the beginning they said it was a war on consciousnness.
Yeah, so that's where we get in the matrix of it all, and that's where we have to kind of have a little bit more of a discerning eye. But that's what they're saying. You know, they're taking a leap into like the Matrix is not a documentary type of thing where they're like, and again, I'm not saying any of that's true, but I'm just asking one to imagine themselves having this conversation on March 31st of 2020, knowing that they know everything about me and the state of the world at that time. Like it was, I couldn't tell. I didn't know up from down. Like I was just like processing as much as I could in any given moment because I'm horrified and I don't know what's going on. So this goes on This is a 2-minute video. There's another one in here that's 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. I mean, we talked at this point in LA. Some days we would talk all day. Some days I would message them and they wouldn't message me back for like a week.
Wow.
I'd be in the office in a meeting having a conversation with the hacker. And okay, so next plot point. So 2 days later, 2 days after March 31st, I think it was, April 2nd, I get a call from Bryan. And he said, I mean, our work was looking like it was drying up at this point. We were still in the office, but it wasn't looking good. And just
what do you mean?
Like
not looking good?
Well, just with everyone in COVID, like
gotcha.
You know,
Gotcha.
Entertainment was shut down.
Right.
And he has a friend, and I've been told not to, and I'm choosing not to say his name out of respect. But he's a very influential Hollywood.
Oh man, now I want to know.
Figure.
Can you tell me off camera?
Sure. But you could also probably figure it out if you want. He's a very influential Hollywood character who's also a big humanitarian.
Can I guess?
I will give you the best poker face I have if you say it right. But it's not, I don't know, whatever. He's a humanitarian and he's a big Hollywood type, and he ran a big COVID testing company in Los Angeles. And because of Bryan, we ended up helping this guy with, he's a guy, sorry. Narrows it down.
He identifies as male.
Yeah, true. I don't know. I've never asked him. But so he needs help doing comms for a big COVID testing company. It used to do something else. It had a different name. They did a rebranding, and they wanted to help to get the word out to people that like this is where you come to get tests for COVID.
Right.
And also, mind you, at this time, I consider myself like a free thinker. I don't care necessarily for the term conspiracy theorist, but at this point, I wasn't even caught up to like there's something messed up going on here. I was like, my mindset was like this is like a big and important thing, and it was, but I was kind of on the other side. I ended up being like in PPE testing people at a certain point. So, but now here I am talking about this. So big character arc. Yeah, we have meetings with this guy, and they're talking about this company and testing and everything. And this is 2 days after Xi reached out after 6 months. And when I mentioned vaguely that, they said, "Why do you think we reached back out to you? We work like painlessly to move the to move the events in your favor," or something like that. And we have the ability to exist in many time spheres, is something they said to me in reference to why they reached out to me 2 days. Because on this day, the end of the conversation is, "Stay close to Bryan and watch how the river will bend."
They said that.
Yeah, I can scroll down a little bit here. They're just like, let's see if we can find it. I don't know if they said exactly river will bend. Okay, so they're asking me.
You need me to go to San Francisco?
Oh, and so, okay, yeah, there's a lot going on here. So they said there's 2 asks. One is that I can get a test.
COVID test.
Yeah, and ask the questions, which seemed superfluous to me, or meet with an agent that they have in San Francisco.
Okay.
They're essentially like, we don't have anyone in LA, but we do have someone in San Francisco, which at that point, I don't think I would have been allowed into San Francisco. It was like fully locked down, but they were dangling this new carrot of a San Francisco operative.
Simple task in Los Angeles. Leave my family out of this. Oh, they wanted you to go to your brother's house or something? They wanted to surveil your brother's house?
Well,
you were like, fuck that?
Yeah, I was staying with them because of like or I think I like smelled blood in the water with COVID, and I was like, I'm just gonna go stay with my family until this like blows over. And they were like, okay, but we need to, since we've severed ties, we need to observe you a little bit more in your brother's home to like kind of rebuild whatever. And I was like, that was always my line. Boom, boom, boom. They want me to be this agent, and I'm just trying to get back to or get to the end of this day. But I mean, we really are yapping. I mean, there's good stuff here.
Okay, you're asking for money?
Oh yeah. So there was a point where in this
your father's securitizations?
Yeah, so they're
LLC
I love
was
hearing
testfully
the giggling. I essentially am like, okay, they're kind of reintroducing themselves, and I'm like, I still don't trust you guys. I still don't know that this isn't, that you are who you say you are.
Right.
And they're kind of referencing before, I'm like, you could just be trying to steal money from me, and they kind of roast me. They're like, bro, we know you don't have any money. We know you're broke. But my dad isn't broke. I mean, whatever.
Your dad's a big shot?
Nah, I don't want to be mean and say he isn't a big shot, but I also don't want to make it seem like he's got a lot to take.
Right.
But he's like, he's worked his life.
Right.
To,
sure.
Whatever. Shout out, Pops. And oh fuck, what did I just do? What just happened?
They're on to us.
Yeah, no, I think that was my mistake. So pretty much they're explaining like, we know you don't have money.
Yeah.
How deeply do you believe? What proof do you need? I'm thinking. And so I say, send me money.
You saw Mr. Trump addressing this as the Chinese virus. He has wanted war, and now he sees the complexity. The shutdown will last until they find a vaccine. The paranoia and the restrictions will not subside.
So this is like a light one, but they're also starting to like call shots a little bit, because none of us had any idea. We were not talking about vaccines. As far as I remember, in March 31st, it was like, is it here or not? Yeah. Not like vaccines. And they're like, they start to be like, this is how it's going to go.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe someone who's informed on the subject, that's an educated guess, but I'm not really sure.
Right.
So I say, send me money, which didn't end up happening, and I'm very glad, because
that would have been a bad call.
That's a big no-no. But
you'd have been next to that dude from Harvard.
Yeah, exactly. Oh God.
Or MIT.
Sharing yourself buried under a mountain somewhere in Colorado. Yeah, who knows what he's doing? But but this is just proof that I am an amateur in this world of espionage, because I didn't know that was like the biggest no-no. But I was essentially like, I need you guys to be vulnerable with me. You know everything about me, and I still don't know anything about you. I still don't know if this is real. And I was like, yeah, send me money. And they're like, sure, yeah, we'll send you money. But eventually, thankfully, I was like, they were like, do you want us to send you money? Do you want to go meet this guy? And I was like, I want to go meet the guy. And so that's the path that we took instead. And then just, I mean, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I always think, why are you so scared? I always think that stuff is so interesting. Like, it gets into the psychology of it, where they're really, I mean, we spend days talking where they're just asking me questions about myself and teaching me about, one time I asked them, like, who are the elites? Who are they? Whenever we say they, and they said, they said, in order to understand the financial elite, you need to understand Genghis Khan and the Black Death. And they spent an entire day sending me messages about how Genghis Khan and the Black Plague led to the fall of the monarchies in World War I in Europe, and how that, like, when they, like, these extensive, like, hours long, days long, like, lessons of just educating me, and about 5G, and about, like, the nanometer measurement of the coronavirus particle, and, like, just so much effort and time, and to what end? And I mean, I think if we, why are you so angry? Whatever. They explained to me again who they are.
They said they're Chinese nationals living in New York City since 2018.
Yeah.
We operate under different levels of government, research, academia, and financial institutions to make an inertia against the installation of 5G networks. This is delicate and vital in that we cannot allow for disruptions in law enforcement apparatus. So secrecy is at the utmost vitality in this measure. We want you to collect information on certain entry points to various institutions and data conglomeration juncture.
Wait, shit, did we even go over that? The essential ask from, they want me to be a mole. Did we even, I don't think we talked about that yet. We talked about that. That's like, oops. That's like the main thing. Is there,
they
like,
straight up told you on this chat that they want you to be a mole.
Yeah, sorry. That was a big one, and it was like day 2 of.
Do you have that?
Yeah.
Let's look at that.
Well, yeah, maybe I am.
Yeah,
maybe I am.
Yeah.
So this is the very first message they ever sent, which was the,
okay.
Attention to you, Max Lebow's urgent to see that there's on Havmeyer and South Fifth Street. It's a pale, frail bird. I mean, just, we could get lost in their poetry all day, but victory for the tiger. This is the day 1 of messaging.
Right.
So let me just scroll through.
Yeah, where's the one where they straight up say, we want you to be a mole?
Yeah. Sorry, it might take me a second.
And how long did it take before they actually said that?
I think it was the second day that we spoke.
The second day?
So now we're in, second day. This is, does it say what day it is? No. 4:06. Yeah, so, but this is the second day of us talking, which I think is maybe a week. They say we reach out, our colleague was thorough. So this is the second day of them talking.
There are cameras and microphones everywhere. This is the way we're able to observe and create a baseline. You've always wondered, Max. We know you as well as anyone. Please do not be silent.
Yeah, they're like, we've seen you naked. They say that a few times too, which is like, cool, bro. Not my response at the time. My response at the time was horror.
Right.
Sorry.
Okay, so essentially, why did they want you to be a mole? Like they wanted you to get in. Like, what made them?
Here, boom, here we go. This is the page.
You are an actor. Our agent has contacts in your government in which it will be of use for you to meet with as a mole. This is much too difficult to explain in typing with a translation. Our agent can give you more complete diametrics and also find comfort in working with one another. There is a war going on. Who it is controls 5G, controls the course of consciousness. Before we can find our position to counteract this, we must understand its implementation. Wow. So okay, so they have somebody who's in the government, who's like a spy working in the U.S. government, and they want you to make a connection with this person.
Allegedly, yeah. So they said
That's like, I mean, that's jumping right to the point. Day 2.
Yeah.
I mean, there's obviously some deep psychological thing going on here, and they know what the fuck they're doing, but it's just like.
Well, to your point, it begs a lot of questions. Because are they just diving in and being straight up with me about what they want, so that I have some idea? That's a distinct possibility. And they mentioned here like you're an actor, but they go on at different days when they talk about the mole thing. They also call it a communications expert,
right?
Where they give reasons for it. They're like, you're an actor, but like you're not like nobody knows who you are. So like acting skills, but not like wouldn't stand out in a crowd. They're like, we're Chinese people, and I assume their connect in the government is Chinese too, and so they said they're somewhat distrusted, but you as like a white American,
right,
Jew maybe even,
would
be more trusted in these high-ranking environments if I had some kind of like falsified certification or something. I don't know. I used to sell like pounds of weed in college, and so I had some run-ins with the police and like talked my way out of it, which they mention, and and they knew about that, and they're like, you've been in high pressure situations and you can kind of handle yourself. So, essentially what they said was that they came to America, they were doing all this recon about the power structures in America, and they found that and this is all stuff they said, I could dig it up if we want, but there's 3 pillars of power. It's like politics, maybe tech and media, I think. And within media, if you recall that conversation I had in a car with my dad in, I think 2015, we were driving by Harvey Weinstein's house. He lived the town over in Southport, Connecticut, and we were driving by his house. And
you knew exactly where he lived?
Well, yeah, because it was like in that area. He always came to the diner that we. I mean, this was before everything came out publicly. We also don't know him, so we didn't know the whole Harvey Weinstein thing at the time. But he would come into like our diner, and he was like a disgusting slob. He'd be like covered in like shit, and like he had an iPad that looked like it belonged to like a 4-year-old. It had like crusty
bacon grease all over it.
He was like a disgusting human being in many ways. Yeah, probably. Oh, I didn't think about that. Yeah.
It's the water of life, Steve.
That's what he told all his victims, I'm sure. So yeah, we were driving by his house one day, and it's like this beautiful, like there's like sculptures and like this huge, like almost like Versailles, like this huge lead up to his house with these sculptures, and it's on like this cliff in Southport, like overlooking the Long Island Sound. Yeah. And we were driving by, and my dad was like, "Oh, that's Harvey Weinstein's house. Like, what a nice house. Like, maybe I should get into film," or something casual and offhand. And not only is it crazy that G like cited that specifically.
Sorry to interrupt, but what's that famous Joe Rogan joke? Have you seen his stand up where he's talking about Harvey Weinstein, and he's talking about like basically child abuse and shit in Hollywood? He's like, if it's your daughter, it's a terrible fucking thing. But if it's your kid, dropping him off at Harvey Weinstein's house and saying, "Son, you're gonna be Batman."
I mean, I know a lot of actors who've said straight up, they're like, I would have. Like people that didn't, they're like, people are very willing to do what it takes.
They know what's going on.
And to the point too of everyone has their weakness. Like, this is mine. I want to be fucking Neo. And for some people, they're like, I want to be a movie star. So I'll do
whatever it takes.
Yeah. But so we had that one conversation. G apparently heard it. So essentially they were doing this recon, 3 pillars of power. One is media. Harvey Weinstein was at the top of that at one point in that time. And because we live in the area, or because my dad like vaguely worked in media or something, he popped up as like a potential, I think they said like a potential, someone who could help them, I guess, just vaguely in this recon. And then because of that conversation by his house where we mentioned his name, they thought that G thought that we were somehow connected to Harvey Weinstein. Wow. And so they started looking at my dad, and then they found his name on his signature as a guarantor on my apartment where I lived on South 5th and Havemeyer Street. And so they started looking at me, and then they saw, like you said, this guy's been to Russia, this guy's been to Cuba.
The Russia-Cuba thing doesn't hurt.
Yeah. Yeah, like communist sympathies maybe. So that's, that's kind of how they explain how they found me, and that kind of feeds into this idea of like why they think I could be a good mole. and that, you know, at that point in my life, I was maybe connected to powerful people or whatever. And certainly when I got to LA, I was connected to powerful people. And it's easier to hack me than someone with Pegasus or someone with Orion, someone who is whatever, someone who's ready to get hacked, as opposed to me. I was a sitting duck. So yeah, this is the whole mole. I can't believe we didn't mention that from the beginning, because that's
crazy. All right, so fast forward to, that's very interesting backstory, by the way. I'm glad we've been back to that.
Yeah.
But before this, we were at the beginning of the pandemic. You're working for Bryan in LA,
right? And
they sent you on this mission to go get a COVID test and ask the nurse a bunch of questions about 5G.
Yeah, and it seemed superfluous to me at the time, and I think I might have been right about that. I think because at the end of I don't want to go back and find it, but at the end of that first day of conversation, they were like, yeah, sure, like you can go meet this agent, or you can go you know, get a COVID test and ask these questions. And I was like, so, okay, so what do I do now? And they're like, just stay close to Bryan. And I forget exactly how they put it. It was beautiful and horrifying. There was something like, and see how you can rise through the ranks or something.
Right.
And then 2 days later, I get a call to go work at the COVID testing company doing comms. And G is like, yeah, we knew that was going to happen. That's why we talked a couple days after that. And they're like, we work in your favor at all times. So I don't know if they were saying they were hacking Bryan or these other people or whatever, or if it was a good guess on their part, but certainly after 6 months of not talking, really good timing. Because then when that job started, they wanted me to get close to all these famous, powerful people and have specific conversations with them with my phone out, get close to the administrators at the COVID testing sites, have a specific conversation with the people getting tested. They wanted me to figure out where the tests went after, you know, at the end of the day, there's a big bucket and they took it somewhere. They wanted me to figure out where the tests went. They at one point asked me to get the names of the officers who took the tests from the site to the lab. So they wanted me to like get, at that point I thought, oh yeah, I guess it is probably valuable information to the Chinese or to these dissidents or whatever, like how COVID is affecting us and how we're reacting to it and how the COVID testing sites are working and all that. And this marks the period of like, something is obviously wrong here. Something is bad that's happening here, but I feel way in over my head because.
So did you do it?
So this is, there were things that I did and things that I didn't do. And because of the FBI investigation, the fact that I'm sitting here right now, the things that I did were not technically illegal, but we're definitely in like maybe a moral gray area because So
this, for people listening, by the way, is like, you're in the middle of it still. This is not over.
This is like the crux, really.
Right.
Yeah, the LA time, because now I'm in the world doing something for them. Like it was fun to research all this stuff and be like, wow, there's this final war going on, and who's Lieber and what's all this stuff. But like this is, and it's interesting at that point too. But this is where I'm like going out into the world and like doing what they tell me to do. You know, to an extent. There was a line where I was like, names of officers seems sketchy, and I'm not going to do that.
And when you go there and they say, turn your microphone on, what does that mean?
Or just have my phone out.
Just leave your phone out and they'll do the rest.
That's enough for them. They're literally just like, go to the administrator, ask them, you know, certain questions about how the tests are disseminated, make it seem like, you know, they said, you're the charming American prince. You know, they're buffing my ego, giving me this confidence to be like, yeah, you can go have a conversation with someone in a completely unsuspecting way, but get something out of them. And so, yeah, they wanted me to talk to these people, give them like character evaluations of them and ask them certain questions with my phone out so that they could listen. But at this point, I started kind of clocking like what seemed like maybe something they could find on the internet or something that was harmless versus something that was sensitive and harmful. And so I would like, for example, at a certain point I started working on the testing site, like in PPE. So I would like have one conversation with somebody that worked at the testing site that seemed like, I'd be like, oh, you ever heard of this guy, Dr. Charles Lieber? Or something like that, or whatever. Or like, oh, what is that? What is that panel over there? And they'd be like, oh, I don't know. And I was like, oh, you know what? I think I heard it's like 5G, like something like that. And then when it started to get a little bit more serious.
Did they ever give you like a specific list of things to say, or you just you're coming up with the stuff on your own?
No, there's like if we go back to I'll see if I can dig it up, but yeah, they were essentially like well, one of the things they wanted me to do is do character evaluations. So they're like, go talk to the administrator and come back and just like tell us what kind of guy he is. Like, and so that to me, you know, I feel thinking about that stuff now, I certainly feel guilty. And I don't want to be like, oh, I was a victim, but like, I certainly feel like it was kind of a moral gray area. But I would like explain the guy, not like his name, not where he's from, not anything like that. But I'd be like, you know, he's a jolly man. He seems educated in his own right. Probably not a free thinker. He probably has a few degrees. You know, he's got a red face, and so maybe his altruism is self-sacrificing. Maybe he spends all day being of service to other people, but then goes home and drinks because, you know, it's his altruism. You know, like stuff like that. Like, just trying to and so that kind of thing. They would ask for character evaluations, and then they would be like, you know, find out what people know about the biology of the tests. I guess for some reason it was valuable to them, or they were saying it was for them to know like what the nurses knew or what the administrators knew about the biology of the test, because they said there had to be certain nanobiology present in the tests in order for a vaccine to be promulgated, is I think even a direct quote.
We're going back to a text message or a message on Instagram that they sent to you about a particular molecule present in the tests that reacts with the active COVID strain. So what are they trying to say here?
So yeah, then they go on to say there's certain biotech that is compatible with 5G. And this message and future messages, well, two things. One, this is explaining the type of things they want me to ask the nurses and the people who administer the test to see if they know this. And just when they said it to me initially, I was like, there's no way these people have any idea about any of this. But what they're saying is that, you know, there's a point at which they described to me the creation of COVID and the creation of the vaccine, and that there's like a symbiotic relationship within the two. And so they're saying that there's a certain biotech that is compatible with 5G in COVID. And so when people get tested, it tests like for that or something. And this is the kind of thing where I don't want to get too much into conjecture.
They're saying molecule present in the tests that reacts with present COVID strains. Or are they saying it actually, where are they saying it's in COVID itself, in the actual virus?
Honestly, that's a really good question, because I don't think, okay, so they've explained it kind of two ways. The main way that I kind of went on thinking about it was that COVID is real, but it was designed in a certain way to spread easily, but not have like a crazy mortality rate or whatever. And that the only function of that was to create enough fear. They're like, people are not going to put computer technologies in their bodies unless they're afraid. And so that COVID was created to like create enough fear.
The idea was that it was created in the lab in Wuhan. The gain of function research was essentially to like figure out more powerful bioweapons, right?
Yeah. And they corroborate that too. And I'm like, well, how is it? And I was like, how did it come to be? And they're essentially just like, someone was injected with COVID and then sent out into the wet market. So it's like this weird mixing of truth, of mainstream and conspiracy. So they're like, it did come from a wet market, but it came not because someone ate a bat or whatever the fuck the story was.
Right.
It was because they shot someone up and then send them out into the wild. So that narrative is more like, okay, COVID itself isn't compatible with anything. It's just a function of creating enough fear that people won't think twice to inject themselves with a new technology that is, you know, allegedly computer technology. But this thing here, I'm hesitant to make conjecture about what exactly they're saying here. There's a molecule present in the tests that reacts with the active COVID strain. Okay, yeah, that's not conspiracy even. That's just saying there's that's how they do the PCR tests, right?
I guess.
I don't know the science behind a PCR test.
A molecule in the I thought the test. So I don't know exactly how the tests work. I assume they're talking about the PCR tests.
Yeah.
So Steve, can you go back to the Google page where it's explaining what the PCR test is. Go to the top of this. No, go back to the top of that. The PCR test. Right here. So Carey Mullis was an American biochemist and recognized for his role in the invention of the polymers chain reaction, also known as PCR technique, that he shared the 1993 Nobel Prize in Chemistry with a guy named Michael Smith. So him and Michael Smith won the Nobel Prize in '93 for this PCR technique, and was also awarded the Japanese prize the same year for. And PCR became the central technique in biochemistry and molecular biology. So go down. So can you click on? Is there a link to like what the PCR test is actually used for, or can you scroll down and find more about the PCR test? Yeah, click that. So the polymers chain reaction PCR is a method widely used to make millions and billions of copies of a specific DNA sample rapidly, allowing scientists to amplify a very small sample of DNA or part of it sufficiently to enable detailed study.
Just like cloning, right?
But I think the argument against it was that if you amplify like enough of a testing, like a small testing pool to enough of a degree, it'll show like most everything. The idea that like we always have viruses that are trying to get into us and we're most of the time fighting them off. If I recall, that was the argument against the accuracy of PCR tests. That it was like if you blow up a tiny testing sample to enough of a degree, you could find the bubonic plague in somebody or something,
right,
so to speak.
Right.
But as it relates to this, I'm not so sure because they also I just scrolled to another passage where they explain the connection of 5G again from their perspective,
right,
and COVID and kind of the
click on COVID-19 testing. Involves analyzing samples to assess the current or past presence of SARS-CoV-2, the virus that cases COVID-19 and is responsible for the COVID-19 pandemic. The two main types of tests detected either presence of the virus or antibodies produced in response to the infection. Okay, right. There was a basically they take the swab of your saliva and they can detect whether your body was creating the antibodies to protect yourself against it. What was the other one? So, the two main types of tests to detect the presence of, so there was just two tests to detect antibodies. Molecular tests for the viral presence through its molecular component are used to diagnose individual cases and allow the public health authorities to trace and contain the outbreak. Antibody tests, serology immunoassay, instead show whether someone had the disease. They are less useful in diagnosis of current infections because antibodies may not develop for weeks after infection, right, and is used to assess disease prevalence, which aids in the estimation of the infection fatality rates. Got it. So in this test, I'm guessing they're talking about there was a molecule. I don't understand. Like,
yeah, I don't. So I pulled up another section. I don't know if we want to look at that first. Because I don't know.
5G is capable of transmitting data at an incalculable pace. If there is a chemical agent within human cells, then all bodily functions can be measured seamlessly. Thoughts can be entered. It's the next phase. There had to be a reason for humans to give up their bodies to these forces. If they fear the virus, they will allow the computer technologies to be placed in their bodies.
And then the next part, they were answering a different question that I asked about.
Right.
They.
Governments. Okay. You're asking who is they? You said, and they say not so organized.
Just fun diatribe here. I not at this point, I asked them who they are because everyone's always saying they, and they describe it really well. They say they are like the mafia in that there's many different families, and sometimes they work together, sometimes they work separately, sometimes they work against each other, but they're all always working to their own, with their own benefit in mind. And sometimes it aligns with each other and sometimes it doesn't. And even if you were to kill all of the heads of every family in the mafia still exists. And so they're on in like a grounded perspective, they're essentially saying it's not so simple that there's one room, the Illuminati, where everybody's just cooking up plans for the world. They're like, there's just all of these people whose power has like metastasized to a certain to such a degree that they're fighting for their own control and their own power, and sometimes they're aligned and sometimes they aren't, but that it's also like this spiritual thing, that it's like this evil that exists in man has been around forever and you can never kill it. It's like a part of humanity. It's like a part of who we are. And I was talking to someone about it the other day where I was like, you don't know who you would be if you had $1 trillion.
Right.
You know, like you don't know what it's like to have that much power. So,
Right.
so it's something in us, you know, in humanity. It's like they are you, you know, you have to kind of check yourself for like your own desire for control and power, you know, but these people just actually have it. Wow. But it's not one group. It's not the Illuminati, you know, it's corporations and bankers and, you know, governments and whatever.
Right. People who we probably don't know the names of.
Yeah. And then people beyond that. I mean, you know, the Club of Rome one is a fun one to dive down. There's
Which one?
There's like some people are like the people who are like Rome was never destroyed. It just like changed forces.
Yeah.
And they cite like the eagle, the two-winged eagle. That symbol has like spanned from, you know, ancient Mesopotamia to Rome to you know the UK to the US and Nazi Germany, and that like that symbol alludes to the fact that there's been this like undercurrent of like power transferred over thousands of years, and it's a fun rabbit hole. I don't know the validity of it, but
Interesting.
but this is the final war. Whoever controls 5G controls data and human activity. The human mind is within reach, and I say so. Our goal is to take control of 5G and use it for good or destroy it, to prevent it from being used for the ultimate evil.
Mm-hmm. So at this point, they're still trying to convince you that they're dissidents of the PLA, and they're saying they're essentially, the idea is China wants 5G, they don't, and they're trying to save America from 5G.
I think they're trying to save the world. It's like so dramatic, but I mean, they go on to say some crazy stuff, like, because then they tell me to read Revelation, and they tell me to read, it's actually funny, you have it right here, Siddhartha, and they tell me to read Nostradamus's quatrain. You know who Nostradamus was?
Yeah.
I didn't before this, but I read his book, and he was like this mystic who allegedly made all these predictions about.
When did he live again?
It was this 1500s, like 16th century, I think.
Okay.
And but because of like the church at the time, and because some of his predictions were about Napoleon, who was kicking at the time, I think.
Yeah.
He had to like scramble them, and so people point to this thing that he predicted there would be like 3 antichrists, and the first one was named like, essentially Napoleon scrambled up. It was like Pao Lao Neon. And then the second one was Hitler. I don't know. And then the third one is named Mabus, but also his references to Mabus are like not specifically saying that whatever. So I mean, this is how deep we're getting here. Like we're getting full tinfoil hat.
We actually just did a podcast on this with Neil, Gnostic Informant. He was basically showing us. Remember there was that badge or that There was like this emblem of a shield with Nero and Napoleon, I think it was, and there was like a severed demon head on top of it, and it had the Pope. It had the Catholic Church father, or it was the Pope or something that was on his hands and knees underneath it, holding up the shield. And this was supposed to be like signify the 2 beasts of Revelation, which were Nero and Napoleon, I think. See, it has the Pope underneath holding it up, and it has, can you zoom in more?
Skull and crossbones.
We'll see what happens.
So anyways, sorry to interrupt you, but you were saying that they told you to read Revelation?
Yeah, so this is where we really start to spiral out of control mentally, because, that's a horrifying image.
Yeah.
Standing on the back of the Pope.
I forgot what this was supposed to signify, but he explained it pretty well when he was in here. I have to go back to it, but there's other, there's conflicting ideas of what this meant.
Well, I guess, to the point of like that one family like paying for the Vatican, it's like this idea that, in the same way that you look to the president to be like, oh, they're the most powerful person in the world, like, give me a break.
Right.
The same thing is like, oh, the Pope, he's the most powerful person in the world, like, no, the people paying his bills are the most powerful people in the world, which are probably these guys that are standing on his back,
Right.
So I'm just trying to find the the next. Oh, that was funny. The conversations with the girls who talk to the hackers. Sorry.
Girls talk to the hackers?
Yeah, the one who when they created a fake account in my name and then they had conversations with the
Yeah.
I'm just trying to find I think this might be the. Nope, sorry. Yeah, so they're having me read. They were talking about buffing my ego. They're like comparing me to Siddhartha, and they're like, you're on the spiritual journey. Bryan is the merchant in Siddhartha. He's the one who, you come out of this ascetic life and you meet this merchant. He's going to teach you about the world. He's going to teach you how to get money. He's going to teach you how to get the woman, which is like, part of the story of Siddhartha. Mm-hmm. And then he becomes really rich and powerful and everything, but then he has this kind of spiritual crisis and leaves and returns to being on the river. This is not the right one either. Sorry.
They also, it's interesting that these guys did not take any time to try to hide the fact that they were Chinese. It's interesting.
Well, but
very overt.
It that begs questions too, because not to skip ahead. Well, I guess it's relevant. I think I don't know if I told you this when we were recording or not, but recently I put all of the messages I ever exchanged with the hacker and the FOIPA reports into ChatGPT. And I was like, what happened here actually?
Right.
And with sources, cited sources saying, specific psychological techniques and things that other governments have done to us and we've done to other, and also stuff like MK Ultra and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. They were ChatGPT, right?
Yeah.
was saying that a distinct possibility. They were like whether or not they're actually a state actor, they didn't come to a strong conclusion. But what they were saying was that, let's say, for example, the Chinese had access to, or somebody, us, whatever, had access to this new technology, because there's this idea that whenever something comes out, it's already been around for 10, 20 years already, right?
Yep.
And so possibly there's a new technology, a new AI that's being tested, and I am a victim of that or a test subject to see how long can you monitor and manipulate and keep someone suspended in this space with just an AI program. So that was something that ChatGPT suggested to me.
Really?
And they cited sources of things where that's happened in the past too. To a different degree or with different tools or whatever. So that was super interesting. And
to break you down, essentially.
Yeah, and just break me down, but then also, keep me in an elevated state to where maybe if there's a use. So then ChatGPT went on to say,
could an AI build a Manchurian candidate?
Yeah, right. Function entirely autonomously.
Social media DMs.
Yeah. And so what they were suggesting too is that maybe, because there's a point where they said, right in the beginning, they said,
that's fucking scary, dude.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. And it's possible that they started with that. It's also possible that because of that conversation about Harvey Weinstein, because of my time in Russia, and they said to me right in the beginning, back in New York, we don't know if these are your own beliefs or if you're working for someone else. And so maybe they thought at a certain point that I had some connection or I was secretly some type of agent or something already, and they were reaching out to me. And it's possible that is true. And then when they discovered that I maybe wasn't so influential, ChatGPT was saying they don't the world of intel and the world of espionage is a long game, and so it's possible that they did reach out to me thinking that I was someone more influential, and then they were like, oh, he's not, but let's try this thing on him, just to let's test this AI on him just to see what we could do, because he's not really a high profile target, and so we can just test out this new thing.
Right. Yeah, because that makes sense to me, because the time and the resources and the manpower it takes to do this with you over years is not a little, it's a lot.
Yeah. And also something interesting my friend pointed out when I was looking at these with him, he was like, how long is it taking them to respond? Because he was immediately they would say, I would be like, who are the financial elite? And they would send me just pages and pages and pages about Genghis Khan and about the monarchies of World War I and about like the different technologies that were available and how they were used at that point in time.
And wait, you would get long ass paragraphs in seconds?
Essays. Or not seconds, not the same way ChatGPT like starts answering before you even, but like I would ask the question, they would start typing, I would wait for the long ones, I would wait a few seconds or maybe 30 seconds, less than a minute, and they would send me a huge chunk. And so then they would go on to say the reason that they are capable of that is because, like we were saying, the technology that comes out today has already been available for 10 years. They're like, we're altered humans. They're like, we're androids. We have...
They said that in here.
Yeah. There was actually a point where I was like, they kept saying humans. They're like, you humans. And I was like, why do you keep saying you humans? Like,
can you show me that part where they said this?
I don't know.
And also, did you ever screen record in the process of communicating with them so you can see like the bubbles and like?
No, it was always like retroactive.
When's the last time you talked to them?
Whenever the last date on this is, probably August of 21. I think.
Wow, it's been that long.
Well, yeah, because then the whole federal thing happened and there was a lot of time. I don't think they let go until I went to the feds because I told them to fuck off. And that time they fought me a little bit. And
well, that's interesting. Why would an AI care about feds? Unless it was controlled by it. Yeah, maybe.
I mean, dude, there's definitely a place in my brain that's sitting, waiting for one day to get another message from G, you know?
Right.
Oh, actually, we might need to blank this because Chamath.
I'm not showing it yet.
Oh, that's the dude you were talking about earlier?
I don't know if we need to cut it because I'm not saying this is true.
Right.
But I'm not slandering him at all.
Right.
I'm just saying that I was involved with a hacker who told me that Chamath Palihapitiya, founding member of Facebook and billionaire, is like, and one of them is like a compatriot of G. I'm not saying that's true.
Right.
That's their claim.
He's the guy you were talking about earlier that we
Yeah. You've probably seen him on the news because he's like very much this outsider who his perspective is, he's like, people say like, oh, all billionaires are evil. And he's like, no, the people who run the world have enough capital to force their worldview onto the world. And the only way to be able to force your worldview onto the world is to gain capital. So, and so you see him on the news, like really talking shit. He even talked about the Rothschilds on like CNN.
Did he really?
Yeah. So, and that's a big swing, I think. Okay, no, this is the end actually. Fuck, I don't know where that video is.
And so you're saying they were talking about humans as if they were talking about something else, like it wasn't you.
Yeah,
like it wasn't them, like they weren't the same.
Yeah, so I was like, what do you mean you humans? And they're like, we don't think you're ready to know. And actually, I think the first day they said that, I was like, yeah, I don't want to know. Because I was like so on the verge of insanity. I don't know if we need to be looking at this, but... and so one day I was like, okay, fine, tell me. And they were like, we're modified humans. We have essentially Neuralink, but it's far beyond what we're told is like the actual power of Neuralink. And that's how we're able to talk with you and be doing other stuff and give you these detailed, intricate, historical, scientific like explanations for things. Because it's essentially like having Siri in your head is how they described it.
It sounds like they're trying to break down your grip on reality.
For sure. Because I'm again sitting here now, I'm not saying that's true, but
right.
At the time, at this time, I was pretty much taking everything they said pretty literally because I was so isolated, I wasn't telling anyone. It was COVID, so everyone was fucked up. Add this on top.
Yeah. My God, dude, I can't imagine.
Yeah, and I was just like, but then something strange happened where I was like, they were like, we're your compatriots. We've got your back. Like, yeah, we're watching you, but we're also watching you so we can protect you from other people who might be interested. So, for example, there was a friend I was writing the screenplay with.
Should have had him send you some Bitcoin. That would have been a good idea. It would have been untraceable. Sorry, your friend what?
There was a point where they're like, okay, you can have one friend that you tell, one person in your life, because I was like, I need to tell someone for my sanity. This is insane. They're like, okay, you can tell one person, but you're opening them up. Or they said that after. So I stopped messaging them, and I called my friend Glenn, who's on the show, or we do like a recreation of our text messages. And And I tell him about this, and then we hang up the phone, and then he immediately starts getting like insane messages and about COVID, but for him it was weird too. They were talking about angels, and they were talking about like different kind of stuff than they were talking to me about. And I immediately was like, this is you, this is G. You're testing him, like you're fucking with him, like stop. And I was getting really pissed off. And they're like, no, there's counterforces. They're like, somebody heard that you were talking to this guy. And again, this is where we're really in, like you said, like, I don't have any idea what's real and what isn't. Because I see that and I'm like, this is obviously them fucking with him. But then they're like, no, bro, like, there's a lot of players going on here. Like, and you opened up your friend and they're coming for him to test him. And it's his job now to navigate that. And it's your job to navigate the fact that you opened him up and now he's being tested. Yeah, it's like I see that you look. I mean, I'm confused. It's
yeah.
So I don't think I actually. Oh, is this it? No. Could this be? Maybe if I go all the way to the end.
So.
Oh yeah, this is where okay, I could probably find it actually if you just.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're talking about Chamath. This is the San Francisco agent. This is the guy they're saying is coming to get me. See that?
It will be interesting to see as you ask him of his reptilian breed, what he says to you, what his eyes say to you, how he moves his face. My function with him is becoming clear as I sit here answering my own questions in my head. The what comes to mind? What does that say?
The river comes to mind.
The river comes to mind.
I mean, this is where I'm starting to talk like them. I'm starting to like really be, you know.
Are you asking me now or offering me questions for our meeting?
About this. But yeah, so there was an interesting point too.
He's talking about Chamath being a reptilian?
No. He's talking about I watched this documentary called Above Majestic. Have you ever seen that?
I don't think so.
I don't think there's a lot of value to it. But it's far out. It's like people talking about like, oh, I was kidnapped as a kid and taken to Mars and like whatever. But it's like people in the conspiracy world like send it around. And I watched it because that's where I was at. And I asked them like, is it true? And they're like, unfortunately, like, yes. And they're like talking about reptilians and stuff. And so I said to them, I was like, okay, well, if he's a billionaire, like, yeah, fuck, we might have to bleep his name. I don't know. I was like, this is all, I'm not saying any of this is true, but I was like, if he's a billionaire, like he has to have rubbed elbows with evil. You don't get that high in the world without like being close. And he's like, they're like, yeah, we know. And then here, let me actually just scroll up to get the verbatim of what they said. But same way I understand.
But they will allow the virus to spread, and its havoc is only growing in its potential. This is the, as you declared it, the eye of the storm, but the clouds are in the sky coming on.
Yeah, I don't know what that's about. But, are they all human? Okay, so humans are made to find greed. Oh, wait, this might be actually right before this where they say that they're... Okay, so they're talking about this guy.
Our billionaire friend?
Yeah, humans are made to find greed. They must conquer them.
Or you're talking about the agent in San Francisco?
Yeah, both. Same guy.
Okay.
And so
but not Chamath.
All the same person. One person. Yeah.
Okay. They're saying that he's working with them.
Yeah, they're saying I'm not saying, they're saying this is all for claiming. Entertainment purposes.
Yes,
They're claiming that this guy Chamath, this billionaire, is their San Francisco agent, is working with them, and he's the guy that's coming to get me. And I say, are they all human? Because I had just watched this fucking documentary.
Are they all human?
And then they maybe we could skip some of this. They talk about Trump being the Antichrist. They talk about the 27-year war, which is the final war, as predicted by Nostradamus. Knows some of them are not of human form. Yeah.
There are other forces within the deepest substructurings. Their exposure can come as the war advances. Wow, you are an advanced creature. Your sensitivity is a marker. Your migraines and emotional intensity come from what we see as a deeper connections that you are beginning to explore and accept as unique.
Yeah, so buffing my ego and also dropping some crazy shit on me. So essentially I'm like, they're like, yeah, in the same metaphor as the mafia, where it's like different families working together. They're like, he doesn't work for us. We work with him, and he has his own interests, and sometimes we're aligned and sometimes we're not.
Yes.
So they're like, when you meet him, we are at, because I go on to say like, well, he must be kind of evil if he's a billionaire, right? And they're like, we have the same questions that you do about him. And so when you meet him, you know, ask him certain questions, see how his eyes flicker when you ask him about the reptilians, try to see, you know, and this is where we're at. I mean, I live in a world where anything's possible, but I'm not sitting here today saying I believe that there's reptilians, but it's also just like totally insane that I was having these conversations on Instagram. I think that's,
it's totally insane.
Agreeable. Yeah.
So where does it go from here?
So it goes, so this is the beginning of the end. This is where I really obviously start to fucking lose my mind. And then, they say he's coming to get me on July 4th of, I think this is 2020. And they're saying that he has to monitor me. But then during this time, so I'm like, okay, bet, finally, someone is coming to get me. But then during that time, they start dropping some crazy shit on me, such as thought hacking and dream hacking. So one night I have a horrifying dream, and this is again, vaccines. I don't think there were really conspiracies about vaccines yet. I think this is like July. I don't remember the timeline exactly, but I don't remember it being like, oh, people are really fighting about vaccines yet. Like, oh, it's coming, but I hadn't heard anything yet. And I had this dream that I was shot up, injected by this man in a suit, and I remember like getting as close to dying as you can in a dream, and then waking up like almost in that like sleep paralysis state where the line between asleep and awake is like non-existent. And I was like sweating and my heart was racing, and I felt the same way that I did in the dream, like as I was dying, and I was like fucked up. So I came to them one day and I started fucking with them because I was just like in a heightened state of fear. And they're like, you're compromised, you're disjointed. And like hearing, again, it's like when they said like, no, this is Max Lebow. Hearing you're disjointed when I very much so feel disjointed and I'm in this like very vulnerable fucking state, I started freaking out. And they're like, someone's in your dreams. They're like, someone has one of the counter forces or whatever. And then they come back to me a few days later and they're like, have you ever heard of the like tag, someone's name, AD44. And I'm like, I have no fucking idea what you're talking about. And they're like, we really need you to tell us the truth here. Like, do you know who AD44 is? And I was like, bro, like what? And they're like, he's in your thoughts. They're like, do you remember an intrusive thought that you had that I only ever talked about in therapy in like 2018, just this like horrifying, violent thought. And it, like that hit me. I don't know if you've ever had intrusive thought, like just sometimes you're just like, it's just comes in, you know?
Yeah.
And they're like, they weren't saying like that thought was implanted. They were like, when you have it, like in the same, I guess, quote unquote science, pseudo, whatever, about dream hacking is essentially that our brains are like electromagnetic receivers. Yeah. And so they have a certain frequency. And so they were saying that because of that, you can, I mean, there's tests. I think you can look it up. I was on another show the other day and they were talking about, for the first time ever, people were able to communicate like in their dreams or something. There was an article that just came out about, like, and so essentially, they're saying that like, it's possible to, when you pick up on like the frequency of REM sleep, you can lock onto that and then you can input something like a word or like or a different frequency, something to like change the way you're dreaming, put you in like a fearful dream or something. Yeah. And so that's what they start coming to. And this is where I'm just like, there's so many things that I was like ready to believe. Even like here, they're saying Donald Trump is Mabus, the Antichrist. I was like, maybe. Or like, you know, the stuff about Lebow, the stuff about Huawei, even the stuff about 5G, I was like, yeah, maybe. But once they started talking about dream hacking and thought hacking and the fact that they're androids and the fact that there's lizards,
What does it mean with Donald Trump and Mavis?
Yeah, this is where they're testing me. They're like the reason Chamath isn't coming to get you is because he believes that you enjoy your status too completely. He's like, you still love The Matrix. I was like rewatching The Matrix, and I told my buddy, like, God, like the guy who eats the steak and goes back asleep to be like a famous actor. I was like, at this point in my life, I was like, sounds nice. Mm-hmm. And then they messaged me being like, you want to be that guy who eats the steak and you're not really ready to do this. And that's why he's not going to come and get you. And it felt like they were just dangling a carrot and it was more bullshit. Mm-hmm. But, also convincing. So I give them this rundown of who I think Donald Trump is. Okay. And anyway, I mean, I don't want to drag too far. I mean, reptilian force, I think we understand. Revelation, disturbing, yeah, and then okay, I guess I should be a little bit more coherent with how we wrap this up.
Yeah. So you're doing these, going back to the first mission they put you on to go do the test, get the PCR test, and report on. Throw these ideas out there to these nurses that are giving you these tests to see how they're responding, doing these evaluations on them.
Right. Thank you. Yes. So that. At a certain point, I was like, this seems superfluous. I was like, if you want access to the lab, like, why don't you hack the lab? Why don't you hack someone that works at the lab and get them to do your bidding? Like, why do you need to know what the nurses do and don't know about 5G? I'll tell you right now, they don't know anything about 5G. Mm-hmm. And so it started to seem like they were testing me more. Yeah. And it was just more bullshit. So I kind of started weakening on this shit. I stopped volunteering at the COVID site. I started getting suspect of all of that stuff. Yeah. And I was just like at home playing like Red Dead Redemption all day, like locked up, like that. And putting my cell phone in the oven at night thinking Chamath was coming to get me.
Yeah.
And then a lady came back into my life that I had dated in college. And again, I wasn't telling anyone at this point, that one guy, but then he got so scared that he ran away and he didn't want to talk to me anymore.
Who?
Just that Glenn. He was in like a couple episodes in the beginning, gotcha. And he was like the person I was allowed to tell. And there was one night where she was over and I was so riddled by this whole situation that I had like a moment of clarity. I was like, I have to tell someone. And so I told her, and the first thing she did actually was snatch my phone and like double tap the icon on the bottom right of Instagram to see if I had another account, if I was crocheting.
Right.
Very smart on her part. But I didn't, because I did not create this. And if I did, that would be genius. So she sat with me. I showed her some of the messages and she was like, oh my God. Like, and I explained to her vaguely kind of where I was at. And she was like, so nothing has happened. They've only ever asked you to put yourself at risk and watched you stalked you relentlessly and threatened you. And your life has not gotten any better. Like, this knowledge is not helping you.
Right.
And she was like, and they haven't, you still have not met anyone. Cause from my perspective, I was like, if a fucking tech billionaire who founded a social media platform, whatever, comes to my house with a black book and an encrypted phone, like, I might at that point be like, okay, something is real happening here. Mm-hmm. But that it still hadn't happened at that point. And so she was like,
nothing tangible is manifested.
Yeah. I've done things in the world for them, but they haven't been like, and they would make the excuse, like, we're PLA. If we get found, they're going to behead us and torture us.
Right.
They said that a few times. And so she made a good point, and it was nice to connect with someone again, and work was maybe starting to come back a little bit. So I was like, okay, you know what? Like, you're right. And so I can show you the last day, because the thing that they said to me on the last day is fucking brilliant, and horrifying.
This is the very last communications you had with them?
Yeah.
Active 5 months ago.
Yeah, but I took this image.
Okay, this is yesterday but this was obviously recorded.
Yeah, this was not recent. So or active 5 minutes ago. Yeah. So you bring to us these warnings. So they're reaching out. There's discommunion because for the first time they sent me a message and I didn't respond because I was now talking to this girl and she was telling me, she essentially was like, it's them or me. And it was clear to me that my life was falling apart to such a degree that I was even considering choosing a hacker on my Instagram over a wonderful lady. And so I give them the business finally. And I'm like, you've essentially, I'm like, you've done nothing but tear me from the people in my life, Convinced me that, no one's going to believe me. You said there would be a clue on the 7th floor and there wasn't. You said that I was going to meet an agent in New York and I didn't. You said Chamath was coming to get me and he didn't.
Yeah.
And you've conditioned me very overtly to be able to handle intense situations, things happening that are beyond the realm of what you think is possibly believable. And now I'm using that skill against you and you're giving me shit for it.
Yeah.
And unless you give me hard evidence, like that's it.
What the hell is that?
Because she and I had just had a conversation where I essentially came up with that I was going to say this to them. And then I said it to them and they're like, yeah, hi, we know.
So
it.
they're saying that you came to this conclusion that you're sending them right now
Because
through your
of her.
conversation with her.
Yeah.
Nice try.
but
We
I had-
are not together now. Wow. Your scary tactics will no longer work on me. And if you reach out to anyone in my life, this will end immediately. This is over, Max. We have told you with consistency and great measurement that Chamath was to be in preparation to meet with you as he... Okay, so they're making excuses, so be it. Goodbye.
And they're like a little salty about it.
Yeah.
I'm like, so be it. And they're like, damn, he called our bluff. And they're like, he was just about to come. Like, Chamath was about to come. And I'm like, sure. At this point, I'm like, fuck you, dude. Like, and that's kind of in the point. Because then, okay, so pretty much they tell me I gave into my fear. I needed to taste the bite of a woman, all this shit. And then the last thing they ever said to me is, one day we will shake hands on the battlefield and see that we are all who we say we are. Was the last message they ever sent to me.
Okay.
And
Which was how long ago? 2 years ago?
No more. It was July of
2020.
2020. Yeah.
Okay. So 4 years ago.
Yeah. And so it takes me a little while to calm down. I'm writing because that's therapeutic for me. I'm dating this girl. Work is coming back. But then a friend came over once and we were sitting and we were reading the messages and then we were talking about it. And we were like, wait, this is kind of the format of like a podcast maybe. And so I started making just the idea that we're talking about, we're looking at something and then we're discussing it. Mm-hmm. And so I brought it to someone I work with. He was like, you need someone in law enforcement to kind of corroborate, for this. And so I cold called the FBI. This was Thanksgiving of 2020. Someone answered the phone. I told them my whole story and they said, and I also said, I'm making a podcast. I'd love to interview someone or get like an official statement. And they're like, yeah, totally. We got you. Not going to happen. And they said, someone will call you back in the new year or never. And I was like, okay, great. Sitting in limbo. And the next day I get a phone call from an agent and he's like, the way that we're the good cop, bad cop, he's like, hey bro, like what's poppin'? Like he's trying to sound like a millennial or something and like be cool and like make me feel comfortable or whatever. And he's like, yo, we'd love to talk to you. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'll come to the office. And they're like, nah, we'll come to your house. And I was like, okay. And so then the next day, this is 2 days after I made the phone call, there's 2 guys in suits at my gate in Venice. I had a little bungalow in Venice in California. And they come in.
Oh, you were in Venice, right? Through the pandemic?
Yeah,
Good
yeah.
Lord.
Yeah. There was even a point too where...
I saw some videos.
No, I was like in that shit. There were days where I couldn't get home because of all the riots. And actually there was a point where...
Homeless like took over, right?
Yeah, no, it was insane. It was like not... People were banging on our windows because my brother lived on the first floor and we had he had a 1-year-old at the time. And
this is when you said you got a gun and they knew you had a gun?
Yeah. They were like, if you're not afraid, it's not clear to us why you secured a weapon. And I am positive... all that ever happened, like my brother and I were like, okay, this is a secret. We're not texting. We're only going to talk about this. And like, because we just wanted to protect the kid at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And they were like, why'd you get a gun then? But then they de-escalated me because they're like, bro, like you do not have the training for a gun, which is weird. If they wanted me to be Lee Harvey Oswald, they'd be like, yeah, go get a gun. Like fuck shit up,
Right.
But they were like, no. And so, yeah, they come into my house, the 2 agents, and I showed them everything because it's fun when you're young to be like, oh yeah, like I said, like, I know everything about the world, communism, like capitalism, like whatever. And I'm not saying anything about that. It's just when the chips are down and it's like, I'm either gonna potentially go to jail for like treason for the Chinese or like come clean and like align myself momentarily with the FBI. It's like there isn't really an option for me. Like what am I gonna do, like run away to China?
Right.
Do we have to wait for that? No.
No, sorry.
Oh, okay, cool. And so I asked them at the time, I said, so what do you think this really is? And they're like, we think that they're actually PLA and it's not dissidents like they told you, and that they used the dissident story to like get through to
They read
you.
all of it?
Well, what's weird is I showed them all of these, and I gave him the computer and I just let him scroll through everything. And at one point during the conversation, I was like, are you guys recording me? And they're like, no. And he must have looked at the computer for maybe 10 or 15 minutes, which is not enough time to read all these. One of these videos is 20 minutes.
Yeah.
But then on the FOIPA, there's a section where it tells like
What's a FOIPA?
a Freedom of Information and Privacy Act.
Okay.
It's like people who want to know about JFK, they file like a FOIPA.
I've heard of a FOIA, but never FOIPA.
Oh yeah, the P it was added to be like you're allowed to know what the government knows about you, privacy. Like,
oh, okay.
Within certain constraints.
Sure.
And but yeah, then on what the first report that I ever got back in the section that's like, person's statement, it was every single thing I said verbatim and all of them, like a very astute summary of all of the messages. And so I was like, okay, if they weren't recording me, either this guy's like a speed reader and has like a photographic memory, and they didn't take my phone. I was like, do you guys need my phone or my computer? They're like, no, you're good. So I don't know how, like they were obviously recording me, or they hacked me and they looked at the messages on their own time. I don't know, but they had pages and pages of my statement, like verbatim, including
like in person that you guys were talking to them when they came to your house.
Yeah,
they had all that.
They had all that, but they weren't recording me, and they didn't need my phone, and I don't know. So they also said, I said, am I going to jail? They said, let's just say it's a good thing you brought this to us and not the other way around, which was like, whew. Dodged a bullet there.
Jesus.
So yeah, they said they thought it was actually PLA. They're like, but give us 2 weeks and we'll call you back. And it was a tough 2 weeks. Wondering if I was like going to jail or something.
Yeah.
And he calls me 2 weeks later, and he says, the good news is you don't ever have to worry about these fuckers ever messing with you again. But the bad news is we can't tell you anything about it. And I asked him some questions, and he was like, we cannot confirm or deny, we cannot confirm or deny, we cannot confirm or deny. But then I asked him one question. I said, if this was a state actor, would you tell me what actually happened in exchange for using my podcast as propaganda? Like, I will let you say whatever you want through my podcast if you just tell me what happened. Like, I need to know what happened. And that was the one question he answered, and he said, yeah, I brought that up to my superior, but he said that we can't make any public statements, including telling a private person. That's considered a public statement, I guess. So I was like, did he inadvertently confirm that it was a state actor by saying that? Right. So. And
you told them that you planned on publishing all this on a podcast?
Yeah, from the beginning. And they're like, that's great. You're free. Right as they were leaving, I said, so you guys are watching me now, right? There was a beat. And there was a bad cop there, by the way, I didn't mention. This guy's the good cop. The bad cop was like 6'4", 250, just staring at me the whole time. If I've ever met a lizard, this guy was a fucking lizard.
Huge dude.
I got a chill up my spine when he, like, it was, I mean, I was
really
also,
tall. Was he muscular?
He was tall and muscular and all he did the whole time was just stare at me. And the other guy was taking notes and being really nice. It was so creepy. And I said, you guys are watching me now, right? And there was a silence, and I looked at the bad cop, and he just looked at me like this. And he gave me like the most imperceptible, creepy nod. And then the good cop was like, no, you're an American citizen. You have rights. We can't watch you. And I was like, okay, sure. So can't tell me anything about it. And then I filed, and we're still actually in that process now. So there is still something left unanswered that will be in the show. Because I ended up hiring someone who works in the media to file different kinds of, and actually a congressman we just got in touch with to like get an actual unredacted report, because all of the Freedom of Information and Privacy Acts have come back redacted, and different each time too. Like they have like the first one didn't say anything about this, but then the second one was like, there's no proof that your phone was compromised or that you were actually hacked. And I was like, bro, we just spent the past 3 hours looking at all of the evidence that, unless my dad is the hacker, like, how would they have known about a conversation and they sent one of the people that helped us with the FOIPA a CD. Like, they're like dicking us around. I don't know what they're up to, but it's just redacted. But then through my work, I was able to talk to a guy who used to work at the NSA and the former head of IT security at the White House. And it's funny because like mid-level tech experts are like, no, this is impossible. They can't really give an explanation, but they're like, this doesn't happen. But then the high-level people are like, yeah, this happens. Like this is like there's disinformation campaigns. So to the point of why they would be okay with me telling this story, it's possible that their goal is to spread a bunch of bullshit mixed in with lies, and then
distraction.
Suddenly I'm telling Bryan to make a movie about Lieber or something, and now like I'm getting information out into the world. It's like a direct line from potentially China or from some other agent, direct line from them to like mass media in America. So that was one of the things that these agents that the NSA guy and whatever said about what it could be. That one, it's like this misinformation thing, but also it's a way to get to more powerful people is like come through me. It's easier to hack me and then get me to whisper in his ear. But then there's also all these other theories about AI and MK Ultra type shit, and I'm hopeful that this next report that we get back will have information because we've got a lot of help getting it. From like media people and now a congressman. We just got connected to a congressman the other day.
Oh wow.
Who's interested in helping with it. So we'll see. But
what has Bryan said about all this?
He's just like such a G about it. Like the day that I told him about it, like when my ex told me to, come clean and whatever, I brought him like a bunch of printed out images of these screenshots like to his house. I left my phone, my computer, everything in the car. And I showed him and he was just like, first he wanted to know, he's like, am I involved in this? And I was like, they talked about you, but it didn't seem like you're in danger or anything like that. And he just didn't seem like phased at all. He's like, okay, cool. I'll put you in touch with this person I know at Wired and this person I know at Citizen Lab, someone that was in one of his movies. It's like this non-for-profit organization that helps with digital security and stuff like that, but also helped with the Dissident too. So, and he tried to help and that was it. He was just kind of, I think he might have his digital security under control, so he was maybe not so worried about it. But and he was also very kind to let me use his name and any kind of resources to help put this story out there because
wow,
it's been hard. We've run into a lot of problems because of I had 2 deals signed actually with big podcast companies, signed everything, and for different reasons they fell apart because of oversight, because of the subject matter. And so that's why I put it out myself, because it's hard to tell a story like this, like he had with the Dissident. People are like, ooh, you can't say that.
Right. So you're currently putting this podcast out on Spotify, right?
Everywhere. Every listen to podcast.
And you got 5 or 6 episodes out so far?
5 and 6 comes out on next Tuesday, coming Tuesday. Yeah.
And you're going to do how many, you think?
I think there's going to be 9, depending on some of the stuff that we get back from the reports and maybe some intelligence agents that we'll be able to get on the show because they're skittish with stuff like this. Yeah. If they're in reserves. What they said to me, one of the guys I talked to who was like, yeah, I've seen stuff like this. He was like, I can't come on the show because even if I say something as like conjecture and it turns out that it's true, I'm going to get in trouble. So
are these active people or are these retired folks?
Well, they now work in the private sector, but they're technically still reserves. So they're not actually retired.
Right.
So yeah,
in what agency?
One of the guys was at the NSA, and one was like, I really don't know what I can't say. I don't want to get in trouble, but he was the head of IT security at the White House at a certain point.
Gotcha.
I guess that narrows it down, but not too much.
Yeah, sure.
I didn't say which president.
Dude, this was one mind fuck of a podcast, bro. Holy shit, man.
I'm glad.
Yeah, I don't even know what to think, dude. This shit's scary.
Yeah. I try to like wrap it up with some kind of moral or something. But I really don't know what it is. I think maybe we have to understand the playing field, and then Because I don't know, burying your head in the sand doesn't seem like the best solution, but you can also, if you go too deep, you could fucking lose your mind. And
yeah. I wonder what would happen if you like reached back out to those people if they were still there.
I tried once to message them again about like the election, because it was still like the last Trump election. Wait, which one was that?
2020 2020.
Oh no, because this was after Trump got elected. What did I reach out? I reached out to them again about something later, and they didn't respond, because I think one of the things that the NSA guy said was, if the feds told you that you don't have anything to worry about, these fuckers are not going to mess with you ever again. He's like, that means they found them, took action, and are guaranteeing that you're safe. Like, they wouldn't have said that if it wasn't true, according to this guy. Not that the FBI is always telling the truth. God bless him. But so I think if there was a G, then they're in a deep dark hole somewhere.
Right. Wow. Well, dude, thanks for coming on and explaining all this. That's a wild fucking ride, dude.
Thank you. Yeah. Telling the story is helpful. It helps me heal, I think, from the trauma.
Yeah. Tell people listening and watching where they can actually listen to your podcast and find you online. Spotify, Apple, everywhere you listen to podcasts. It's called The Final War, and there might be something else called The Final War, but it's called The Final War. My name is Max Lebow, so that's how you would find it. And we also have an Instagram, The Final War Pod, and we're gonna do TikTok soon too. You do YouTube?
The Final War. No, we haven't. It's a longer story that we don't have to get into, but I just made it all by myself on GarageBand. While I was waiting for all these other deals, so I don't have video. Okay. Yeah, check it out.
Cool. Beautiful.
Yeah, Buzzsprout, that's our like hosting platform. So if you click that, you can see all the nice. Yeah.
Awesome, dude.
I think I need to redo the art. I don't like the art.
I like it.
The episodes are better, but I think the main art I need to change.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll get there. Just one man and his story, and Adobe Firefly trying to create AI images.
Fuck, dude, what a crazy mindfuck of a story, bro.
Yeah.
My brain is scrambled.
Yeah, sorry.
Thanks again for doing this, bro. This was fun.
Thank you, my pleasure.
We'll link everything below.
Cool.
For everyone who wants to check it out. And sleep tight, everyone.